Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 8th, 2013 Lawrence City Commission meeting. First item on our agenda this evening is to proclaim the week of October 13th through the 19th, 2013 as Live Well Week. Do we have a spokesperson on this important event?
Mr. Mayor, Commission, I'm Chris Tilden, Director of Community Health at the Health Department. And if I may, I'd actually like to yield the floor here in a second to two speakers. I just wanted to say that we at the Health Department are delighted to be providing coordination for Live Well in December 2012. We were provided the opportunity to begin providing support to the coalition, and we're just delighted to be part of the 5 years of the organization. We have reports which I'd like to share with you all, and then ask Cindy Johnson, who is our current chair for Live Well, to say a few words, and Marilyn Hall, who was the founder of this organization, to also say a few words. So I'd like to allow them to come up if they may.
That'd be great. Thanks, Chris.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Johnson, and I'm the current chair of Live Well Lawrence, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity to recognize this organization. We are celebrating our 5th year. We started in 2008 based on a grant from the Kansas Health Foundation, and it was to create a healthier community here in Lawrence, and all of us on the committee are very passionate to that end. And our current coalition is now 100 members strong, and we have 4 dynamic work groups that really got down to the work of the organization last spring. And those work groups are in the areas of healthy food for all, the healthy built environment, the work well in the workplace, and healthy kids ages 0 to 18. And our current mission, and we're working in making good progress towards that mission, is to make it easier for Douglas County residents to eat healthy foods, be physically active, and to be living tobacco-free. So thank you for your attention this evening and your support.
Thank you, Cindy.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Marilyn Hull. I wanted to take just a minute to thank you for all the involvement of the city staff and commissioners in the work that we've undertaken over the last 5 years. Some of the people involved that are members of your staff have included Roger Steinbrock, who is one of our founders, Tim Laurent and Ernie Shaw have worked closely with us from Parks and Recreation, Eileen Horn from the Sustainability Office, Scott McCullough, Todd Girdler, and Jessica Mortinger working with us on complete streets, sidewalks, and bikeway planning. Chuck Sewells and Mark Teal on sidewalk and bike lane improvements. Lori Carnahan is part of the Work Well Lawrence leadership team working on workplace wellness. Bob Nugent, as a member of the T, has been part of our planning process. Scott Wagner has been one of the spearheaders of the Ride Lawrence Bicycling Initiative. And Cynthia Wagner has an ongoing involvement in our community health planning process. Also wanted to just give a shout out to Jeremy Farmer, who also serves on our leadership team for Live Well. Thank you very much for your support in the last 5 years. We look forward to more good work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. We appreciate the work you've done. It's been nice to see this grow and flourish over the last 5 years. People, when they look at a community, they look at a lot of things, but a healthy, fit, and a well community is something that I think brings people here. And I think this initiative and this program is paying dividends, and not only health of our citizens, but the health of our community from a financial and economic standpoint. And I appreciate the work that you've done on this. I don't know, Jeremy, if you want to add any words before I read the proclamation.
Yeah, I mean, this is exciting because, you know, we want to get somewhere as a community in relationship to our health. And I was excited to go to orientation yesterday for the Live Well leadership team, and have worked with the Access to Healthy Foods for All group. And this is just it's really important stuff, because our community is only as good as the people in it, and as far as our health is concerned. And so, Marilyn, thanks for doing this. I mean, this has been a big undertaking, and I just want to say publicly, great work. This organization has flourished because of your leadership, so thank you. We're indebted to you for all that you've done. So,
I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation. Great words, Jeremy. Whereas good health and quality of life for everyone in Lawrence is an important goal for our community. And whereas healthy eating, being physically active, and living tobacco-free are essential ingredients to a healthy, productive life. And whereas the City of Lawrence has been actively engaged in efforts to promote community health, such as clean indoor air, complete streets, and the development of a county-wide community health improvement plan. And whereas Live Well Lawrence is a diverse, active community coalition founded to promote policy and environmental changes that make it easier for local residents to eat healthy foods, engage in physical activity, and live tobacco-free. And whereas in the 5 years since it was founded, Live Well has experienced tremendous growth, and it now has over 100 community partners contributing to our community's health. And whereas Live Well is committed to advancing shared public health priorities and making the community a healthier place to live for current and future generations. Now, therefore, I, Michael Dever, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the week of October 13th through the 19th as 2013 as Live Well Week in Lawrence, Kansas. And Chris, can you come get this? Good to get instructions. And the next item on our agenda is to proclaim the month of October 2013 to be the Meet the Blind month, and October 15th, 2013 to be White Cane Safety Day. Do we have a spokesperson person to receive the proclamation this evening?
Hello, Council. My name is Renee Morgan, and I want to thank you for this opportunity. The National Federation for the Blind, as a representative of the National Federation for the Blind, which is an organization that started in 1940, to not be an organization for the blind, but an organization of blind people to educate the public, alleviate misconceptions, and also help the blind gain independence. As a new member of the NFB, I've only been a member for a year. I lost my sight in 2011 after 42 years of being 20/20 vision. That I thought it was my last semester at KU, and I thought that was it. And I went to my first NFB convention and found out that wasn't it. And I found out that there were a lot of people out there that were in school and that were doing things that I wanted to be doing, and that were reading and writing and things that I thought that I had lost forever. And this organization has really helped me to learn to live independently, and will hopefully continue to do so. I also would like to invite everyone to October 12th, which we are having a Meet the Blind table on 9th and Mass. And we'll also be having our band playing Volition, be playing from 11 to 1. And so please do come out and support us and find out more about what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. It's great to hear your story, and I understand the importance of this awareness, and I think that it's important for us to recognize that there are definitely a variety of members of our community, and we need to embrace and understand all of them, and in light of that, I'm going to read this proclamation. Whereas the National Federation of the Blind was founded in 1940 to end discrimination against the blind and to secure first-class citizenship for all blind persons. And whereas today the Federation, representing more than 50,000 members across the country, continues to work to secure equal rights and opportunities for the blind. And whereas the National Federation of the Blind works to change attitudes about blindness by providing information about blindness to parents, teachers, school administrators, to business, political, social, and civic leaders, and to the general public. And whereas since blind people and the blindness are still frequently misunderstood, the National Federation of the Blind has developed a public education campaign, Meet the Blind Month, to create opportunities for the people of Kansas and people everywhere to learn firsthand that blind people are basically like everyone else. Now, therefore, I, Michael Dever, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2013 to be Meet the Blind Month, and October 15th, 2013 to be White Cane Safety Day in Lawrence, Kansas. Thank you very much. Before we get to the consent agenda, I wanted to ask everyone to silence their cell phones this evening. And that all public comment items are limited to 4 minutes per item, and at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, you'll hear this chime. And at that point, we'd ask you to wrap up your comments. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered in one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussions on those items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Are there any items that a member of the commission would like to remove from the consent agenda? Are there any items that a member of the public would like to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'm going to add claims, 524 vendors of $4,912,909.69, and payroll of $1,869,518.50. Is there a motion? Motion to approve the consent agenda with items added by Commissioner Shum, seconded by Vice Mayor Amix. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. City Manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission. Only one item this week. As I previously advised you, we were advised by the state of Kansas that they're no longer pursuing the concept of a Clinton Lake hotel development. Diane and I and others, city staff, were involved as far as participating in a pre-bid meeting. We did receive this information from the state. I still have not received the one proposal. It's with the procurement office. I think that since the proposal is no longer being analyzed, it'll be a public record and I'll be able to access it and show it to you all and take a look at it and see it as well. I also plan on having staff, myself and others, continue discussions with appropriate state representatives about possible work out there, but this process is no longer being pursued. That's all I have for this week.
Very good. Thanks, Dave. Any questions about that issue for the city manager? Okay. Next item on the agenda are the regular agenda items. The first one is to consider adopting on first reading ordinance number 8862, authorizing the issuance of $40 million in industrial revenue bonds for the Kansas athletics portion of Rock Chalk Park project.
Mayor and Commissioners, Gary Anderson, partner with the law firm of Gilmore and Bell, is here this evening to respond to any questions or concerns that you may have. Gilmore and Bell serves as the city's bond counsel. Gary is the city's bond counsel in regards to this issuance. I think that the memorandum sets out the particular focus that we have in regards to this item, and as a reminder, there is no city financial liability in regards to this issuance. The reason why the city has pursued this is that this conduit financing allows the property to be exempt from property tax abatement. It also allows for the builder to have a sales tax exemption on construction materials for the project that is built. That's, we believe, appropriate given its very strong link to the University of Kansas and the benefit that will come from that. So Gary's here. We can walk through any of the instruments or respond to questions. Tried to respond to some of the vice mayor's questions in regards to this, and we may want to talk further about some of those as well. So.
Very good. Do you have any questions before public comment?
You can ask public comment
Yeah.
first, if you'd like.
Is there any public comment on item 1? Okay, seeing none. Mike?
Thanks, Mayor. Gary, a couple of questions after some of the best reading I've ever experienced. This has been a great time. And thanks to the commission, Mayor, allowing the public to have, another week. I always believe that that's a good idea. Couple of questions, Gary, and understand, my opinion of the process and, you know, the idea of the park. But I just want to make sure that everything is supposed to be in here and that I understand, you know, and public understands. Page 27 of the lease, Gary, it talks about a sublease, leasehold mortgage. Can you explain what that is and whether or not, you know, there's another one also on page 27 talks about an intercreditor agreement, and then a subtenant pledge talks about for the bonds for permitted indebtedness. Can you explain those items to me? One, on the intercreditor agreement, are those part of this, and should they be here at this time as we consider this along with the leasehold mortgage, sublease leasehold mortgage?
Commissioner, again, Gary Anderson, Gilmore and Bell. The intercreditor agreement and the sub-leasehold mortgage are documents that the city will not be a party to. They relate to the borrowing that Bliss Sports will do in connection with the project, in effect, to finance the project, which they will use proceeds of their loan to finance the bonds.
Okay. And so the sublease leasehold mortgage? what
Right,
is that?
city is not a party to that. And again, it relates to that financing.
Okay. And then could you explain about the subtenant pledge for the bonds for the permitted indebtedness and how that all works?
Okay. This is a transaction which we generally refer to as a buy your own bonds deal. So that
Okay.
Bliss Sports is in effect purchasing the bonds. They are financing their acquisition of the bonds by loan and equity. It is common in these types of circumstances for the bondholder to pledge their bond to the lender as additional security, so that in the event there would ever be a potential default on the loan, the lender could exercise its right to acquire the bond and then to direct the bond trustee as bondholder with respect to any remedies they might have, which really there aren't any remedies other than to basically terminate the transaction and clear title.
Okay. And then so that this leasehold mortgage and this intercreditor agreement, because we're not a party to, those are not public documents?
Correct.
Okay. And then as we talk about the abatement on the tractor property, there is undeveloped property on this site that is part of the park. That is, the abatement applies to all the property on the site.
All of the property that is what I call the Bliss Sports
Right.
/ Kansas Athletics property.
But there's
yes.
part of that that's undeveloped, okay?
Correct.
If it is developed for any other purpose other than the Rock Chalk Park as we know it, does the abatement, is it gone on that property?
The city, separate and apart from the IRBs, the city and the Endowment Association entity, which is RCP LLC, agreed to certain restrictions with respect to the Bliss / Kansas Athletics property, so that if there is any intended use beyond it being used as a sports facility, the city would have to consent to such a use. And that's separate and apart from the bonds. That's under all the other documents you may remember earlier this spring.
Well, I remembered us doing that other uses that might exist would have to have an SUP filed on those. But I was just wondering if another use came on the property that's currently undeveloped, would the abatement still be on that property, or would it have to be considered as a separate, a new use for the property?
They would have to return to the city, because under Kansas tax abatement law, only property that is financed 100% with the bonds is entitled to the abatement. So it's expected that the amount they spend on the Kansas Athletics facility will be $40 million or a little bit less. So if they come in and decide they want to spend $10 million on X, whatever X is, and they don't come and obtain approval from the city to issue additional bonds to finance that, it would not be exempt under Kansas law.
Okay. And it cannot be part of this issue because
Correct.
that's already laid out.
Right.
Okay. Good.
Any other questions? Commissioners, any other questions for Gary?
I have none.
Okay.
I move approval of ordinance number 8862 on first reading.
Second.
And one comment, if I
Sure.
could, Mayor. Mayor, understand, and to my colleagues here, you know, I'm always going to have question about, you know, the project. Gary, I do appreciate your answers. And again, I appreciate the commission and staff's willingness to allow another week for, you know, the opportunity for people to read through these documents. You know, the public has made, you know, incredible investment here, both through dollars spent and also through abatements. And, you know, I appreciate, you know, everybody's able to see the, you know, the big picture. I guess I'm not able to, but just want to pass that along. Gary, thanks for coming back again. You know, let's go.
Okay. There's a motion by Commissioner Shum and seconded by Commissioner Reardon. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1 with Vice Mayor Amix dissenting. Second item on the agenda is to conduct a public hearing on the amendment to the 2013 budget and consider the following items related to the amendment of the 2013 budget, which is consider authorizing city manager to enter into an agreement with the Lawrence Community Shelter for a $725,000 loan and consider adopting on first reading ordinance number 8922, amending the 2013 City of Lawrence operating and capital improvement budget. Casey?
Dave wanted to talk. Okay. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Casey Toomey. I'm the budget manager for the city. As you recall, we were here 2 meetings ago, I think, talking about a request from the Lawrence Community Shelter for a loan to pay for some improvements to their new facility and some roof repairs to the facility. In order to proceed with that loan, staff recommended amending our 2013 budget. We had sufficient budget authority to pay for some of the loan out of fund balance in the city's general operating fund. However, the 2013 budget did not have sufficient budget authority to spend down fund balance out of the special alcohol fund. So the budget amendment that you have before you tonight, it would amend the city's special alcohol fund to provide us with the budget authority to spend down the money for $300,000 to support that loan to Lawrence Community Shelter. The process for amending the budget is we publish a notice in the paper of tonight's hearing, which we did on the 27th. We hold the hearing, have public comment, and then following that, you close the hearing, and if appropriate, adopt the ordinance amending the budget. Do we want to stop there and then talk about the loan after that, or
I'd go ahead and,
go on? Okay. At our last discussion of this item, we also talked about the agreement with Lawrence Community Shelter, and you all had a lot of discussion about how, to what degree we wanted to secure the city's interest in that property or that loan. So we provided you with two agreements. One requires or would require the city to obtain a mortgage on the property, the other would not. However, both have a stipulation in the agreement that Lawrence Community Shelter would have to get written permission from the city prior to leasing, selling, encumbering, including by mortgage, that property. That's what I have. There was a third option that came up in our discussion of the possibility of People's Bank assigning the existing mortgage. That is the preference of Lawrence Community Shelter because it does save some funds, mortgage registration tax and title insurance. If that is an option that we wish to pursue, our legal staff felt that we needed to have some more conversations with People's Bank, review that existing mortgage, make sure that everything is appropriate before we proceed. So we don't have an agreement that includes that language for you here tonight, but if that's the direction that you all provide, we certainly can do that. I'm ready for questions.
Casey, have you seen a copy of the potentially assignable mortgage from People's Bank?
I have a copy of it.
What's the outstanding sum?
The amount of the mortgage is $1,143,199.
And that's considerably more than the $725,000 loan we were prepared to make.
That's correct. That's one of the items that we would need to discuss, I think, with People's Bank if we pursue the assignment, would be how that works. That was the amount of the original loan, so some of that's been paid down, so we'd have to work through that.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. Any other questions for Casey right now? All right, thank you. Is there public comment on this item? Okay. I have a question for the shelter board agents who are here. Do you guys happen to know what the actual current outstanding amount of the loan is?
622,774.
622,774. Thank you. Okay, so Dave, you've been assigned a mortgage as the city manager before?
Can't say that we have.
Okay.
I mean, we do secondary mortgages through the CDBG program, so we've got some experience with that, and we've all got personal experience with the process. But I mean, we think it's fairly straightforward, you know, in regards to that, but we need to check the documents and make sure that it all works as far as the right closing date. And there are some advantages to that as far as some of the closing costs and registration fees and those kinds of things that we might be able to avoid, but it may be cleaner from our standpoint to have that mortgage released and a new mortgage placed on it. We'll have to take a look and see all of those items. We just don't do that enough, and we didn't have the time between when we last talked about it and when we had already set this as the hearing date night. Your action tonight really just needs to be to conduct the hearing. Obviously, if we can decide what kind of agreement we want with them, we should do that as well, but we may not be able to make all those decisions tonight.
Great.
Dave, say we mortgage the property. My concern with doing that would be if the shelter needed to get a van or, a piece of equipment for playground equipment for their kids or something like that. How would us holding a mortgage affect their credit rating? Income to debt ratio is what I'm thinking. How would that have an effect on that?
Well, someone that would be looking at their credit would see that instrument as they do now. I don't know that would impact their ability to go and purchase something. It might impact their ability to go and get credit if that's what they would do, if they were borrowing money for that type of item. If they were going to borrow money on the building, what we're asking for in the proposed drafts is that they get the city's written permission to further encumber the building, regardless of whether we have a mortgage on it or not. I think we recommend that. From our first discussion, we would recommend that regardless of whether we put a mortgage on the property or not, if they're going to sell or transfer or lease the building or mortgage the building, that they let you all know and have you all approve what they're going to do.
Yes.
This would probably be for John or one of the board members. The roofing material that is on the roof, I understand, I've talked to one of the builder guys today and talked about the roof on that building is a 26 gauge standing seam metal roof.
Mhm.
And it's got a life, it was, the building was built in what, 2001 it was finished. It's got like a 25 plus year life expectancy to it. It seemed to me $102,000 to repair that roof that was bona fide bid, right?
Yeah, we had, John Taha, I'm the president of the shelter board. We had 5 bids, I believe, and they ranged from $105,000 to $170,000. The $105,000, which we picked, was generous enough to get it down to around 98. So it's going to be around 98,000. And so it was by far the lesser bid of the 5 we had. The people who gave us that bid have done a lot of roofs. They work with a company that has been in business for 100 years, 70 years, 100 years. I don't want to stretch it, but a long time. So even if the company that's doing the work, if the product that they put on the roof was bad, the company that put it on there still stands by it. So that was a good factor for us to look at them as well. They also did a comparable thing to the shelter in Topeka, and they were very happy with the work they did there. So it was by far the cheapest bid.
So is the metal roof that's there, is it punctured?
According to, it's a difficult question. According to some of the people, the roof was never put on correctly to begin with. You also have issues with metal roofs where when they put the things that hook the things down, if they don't properly put the little tabs around them, then that causes leaks. It's hard to know. So that's a difficult question to ask. I'm not a roof person. Nobody on the board is. We asked those people who went up there to look at it, and they said that, it was simply something that we needed to do the whole project because we have a lot of leaks.
John, something that I've been asked that I didn't know the answer to, I wanted to give you an opportunity to address is, when you guys moved into the building, was there an inspection that was done to talk about the roof, or was that something that you guys kind of found as you moved in when the roof started leaking?
We had an agent, and the agent told us that there had been an inspection on the roof, and so I, as the president, signed the agreement that we bought the building as is. And to me, when I signed that agreement, I felt that we had had an inspection on the roof and that it was a satisfactory inspection.
Thanks.
I'm giving myself some kicking on that one because probably as the president of a board, of all the things that could happen to a building, that might have been the most important thing to make sure that we had looked at. We thought we did, and of course, when you inspect a building and it's been dry for 3 months, you don't see much. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, we've had some real big rains and we found we had a problem.
Sure.
We wish we did not have that problem.
Right.
Any other questions for John? John, is the plan to re-roof the building?
Is to what?
Is it to re-roof it in the areas?
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, we wouldn't re-roof it, no.
What are they
There's a
gonna do to it?
process that would not be re-roofed.
Are they going to laminate it?
No, I don't know how. Do you understand, Joe, how to describe what we do?
May I comment?
Please.
It's my understanding that there is a secondary benefit to doing to the building what we're doing. It will also add insulation to the
Can you go
roof.
up to this? Yeah, so people can hear.
It will also add insulation to the roof, which hopefully will cut down on the heating and cooling aspect of it. I think the company is called Perma something. And they actually go in and overcoat the entire roof. They are not removing the roof. They put a substance between the standing seams and then over the top of it a coating that will keep it from leaking in the future. I might mention that there was a warranty on the roof by the person who put it on there, but they have since gone bankrupt and are out of business. So the warranty was as good as the people who put the roof on, and that's one reason that we were really concerned about who is warranting this roof. And it is the national company, not the installer.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? I might, if I might just for the public record mention that because I wasn't here the last time, I've had a lot of calls from people about how much overage the shelter had when they renovated the building. And I think it's important that people realize that when we did the original idea of what we were going to take to renovate the building, the architect had hoped it would be around $900,000. When the bids came in, they were much more than that, and so it took us several months to get it down. So the actual renovation costs were only $1,020,000. So the renovation costs were about $120,000 more than what we hoped it would be, not some of the numbers that were quoted. And I think that's important for the public to know.
Okay.
I think it's also, because I went back and looked, I tried to go back because I've been involved with this for 5 years. And so a lot of the expenses that have gone into this whole project have not just happened in the last year and a half, they've happened over several years. And so when we added all the legal, the engineering, the architectural, all of those things to the actual purchase of the building, the renovations, the furnishings, it ended up with well over $4 million. And so the fund drive that we had probably came in around $200,000 or $3 less than what it was going to take before the roof. So by the time all our pledges are paid and we paid you back what we've agreed to, the overage that we had on that renovation cost was not anything close to the $600,000. It was more like $120,000. And I just wanted to put that out for the public knowledge.
Appreciate that, John. So as a matter of housekeeping, since those comments were related to the applicant, I'd like to have a formal motion to open and close the public hearing, since I forgot to do that.
Second.
It's open. Okay, a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Shum, seconded by Vice Mayor Amix. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. This public hearing is open. Is there any further public comment on this item?
Mayor, I move to close public hearing.
Motion? Motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Farmer, second by Commissioner Shum. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Commissioners, comments about, I know we don't need to make a decision, but I think we'd like to give staff some direction on how we feel about moving forward with this, whether we do it and or what shape that might be. So I like the idea of the assignment, but I don't know how complicated that is.
I was of the opinion that to take a mortgage on it might tie up the shelter somewhat, but I'm willing to agree to the assignment. I think the assignment's a good remedy. It doesn't cost any money and it protects the city's interest. Although, as I've said before, I think that's kind of a moot point, because if for one reason or another the shelter management goes out of business, we're going to be more than likely the operational arm of the shelter. So
It's just the landlord.
we're going to. So, but there were a few people that indicated to me that they felt that we should have some kind of financial instrument tied to it. And I talked to Joe Baker over the week and indicated that the board, I believe he said the board, if I'm saying this wrong, please correct me, but the board doesn't have any concern about submitting to a mortgage. But I think if we can get the assignment, that's going to save some money, and this is all about trying to put the bucks in the best place we can for the shelter. So that would be my offering.
And I haven't Mayor, I haven't changed my mind. I think that we need to have some kind of mortgage. I want to make sure, though, by going through the assignment process, if that happens, we can still attach a mortgage to the facility, or just going to accept the assignment?
Well, the assignment is the mortgagee.
That's going to be the,
Mortgagor.
You know, you're getting double what you're loaning them, so that's a pretty good mortgage.
okay.
The thing that I think it's important to talk about this, though, is if they needed more money, let's say they wanted to expand or they wanted to do another service that required some capital, then they cannot use the value of the building unless, my understanding is, you can't use the value that's the equity in the building in order to gain new capital for whatever their facility is they're trying to build. Because we're taking a first on $1,143,000, even though they've got about almost $600,000 equity in the note, in the building. Is that correct? I mean, am I?
I'm not sure anyone on the board could answer that question. I was of the opinion that if the mortgage was assigned, it would be reduced to what we owe.
The outstanding amount.
But I don't know that, and I don't know that
I
whether we
think that's
had
right.
time to look at it or not.
Yeah.
That's the way it should work. I mean, the only way that Peoples is going to assign it to us is that if they're financially relieved, which is entirely appropriate. So what we would do is there'd be a closing where it'd be assigned to us. We would pay the $622,774 or whatever it is on that date. Peoples is satisfied, they're out of the picture. We then have a mortgage for that amount. We haven't gone through any of the paperwork to have to pay the registration tax and those kinds of things. And then we have a note, a separate agreement with the shelter that indicates that. And then we'll have an understanding and agreement with them that they're going to pay I think it's the 225. I should have this open. I'm sorry. The amount that they're going to be getting in pledges, we'll have that come in, and then that will reduce their principal and interest amount that they owe us, and we'll have it for that life. And we may have to modify some of the instrument later on to reflect all of our the interest rate and the amount, things like that. But I think that can be done separately than the actual mortgage itself on the property. That's my understanding. Again, we don't do this enough. We'll find the right counsel to do that. This came a little bit after we got into it, and we had the press of other business didn't allow us to get it all tidied up for this evening.
My understanding is that if you change the mortgage in any way, then you've got to file a new mortgage, and you've got to do the mortgage registration tax. And so you're thinking that you could just take a lesser amount, what's owed us as the mortgage.
I'm thinking what I'm going to do is follow your will as to what you want, which is what we pretty much worked out the deal as far as what the interest rate's going to be, 15-year payments on a 30-year amortization with the balloon payment at that interest rate. And then what we need to do is find a way to see if we can't reduce any of our other expenses accordingly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it is the assignment that looks like that could work really well. Clearly, what we want to do is we want to be the creditor in this situation, and People's Bank would be paid out. And I just don't know all of the details at this point. We'll quickly find that out. That's something. If you're wanting that, if you're wanting a mortgage on the property, then we'll find what's the best way to make that security a real thing, and then what's the cheapest way in order to affect that.
I think it's very important that the city provide funds for relief for this group, because they do such a tremendous benefit for our citizens. As far as the lease mortgage situation, my initial thought was that I didn't want to encumber them with the mortgage, but after thinking about that and listening to people talk and rereading, I do think that some type of mortgage is important. So I think we ought to direct the city staff to look at the most cost-effective way of doing that. And if that's assignment, and it reduces their costs so they can put more money into directly helping people rather than to helping bankers and other people that don't need the money as much, I would recommend that we do that. I think that's very important that we have a mortgage at this point of some type, and that will affect them to a certain extent, but I want to minimize the effect that we have upon them.
Okay, and I think Jeremy brought up a good point about borrowing capacity, and I think when you have an asset that's worth several $1 million and a loan that's worth less than half that, I think any creditor is going to see a good balance there. You know, I think you mentioned the loan to equity value is I think the building is worth far more than what we're talking about here, at least based on the improvements they've made and the fact that they may have gotten a good deal on the building at the time when they bought it. So anyway, just bring that up. Any other comments, or you want to direct staff to go the direction of assignment of mortgage if possible, if we can get that number properly accounted? And then
Get it reduced as far as
yeah,
no additional costs, I guess,
Okay.
be incurred.
and then we're okay with changing the operating and capital improvement budget. So we'll vote on that at a later date, right?
You
Can we
can
do
go
that now?
ahead, Mayor, and approve on first reading and second reading, obviously, next week, the
Okay.
ordinance. That then just gives us that expenditure authority. Then concurrent with that, we'll be finalizing this instrument. It will have a mortgage. The question is whether or not it's assigned or if it's new, if that's the will of the commission.
Sounds good. So is there a motion to adopt on first reading ordinance number 8922?
So moved.
Second.
Wow, I got a lot there. That's awesome. One more time.
Can't wait to shove that money across.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to say motion approved by
The team.
Commissioner Reardon, seconded by Commissioner Farmer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next,
Then direct us to prepare the agreement with the mortgage with the additional analysis on the assigned.
yes, we did
So
that.
moved.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Shum, seconded by Commissioner Reardon, Commissioner Farmer to have staff do what the city manager just said.
Did you want to vote on that, or?
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. This is kind of an interesting process here.
Mayor, if I could?
Yes.
One last thing. I just want to do two things. I want to thank the commission for having the confidence in an organization that will treat you right. We have a great board, and now we can concentrate on the kind of fundraising that is more fun because it will be toward things that help people. The building, the renovation, the move was all necessary, part of which this body told us we needed to do. But now we can do things that will be for the betterment of people. I also want to compliment your commission. Some of you on the commission know 4 or 5 years ago, I expressed frustration many times because I didn't feel that the community was really involved. And obviously you're very much involved, not just tonight, but in other ways you've helped us. So I just want to commend you. I've always had this feeling that the mark of a community is how well you treat the least of those in the community. And you've shown tonight how that works, and I really commend you.
Well, thank you, John, and thank the board for their hard work, and let's get some more funds raised, and hopefully we can all be a part of that. Thank you. All right, so the next item on the agenda is item 3, which is to consider approving a request to rezone approximately 2.119 acres from RS7 to district to RM12, and that's at 2518 Ridge Court.
Mayor, as Mary prepares, I might remind the commission that it's beneficial to the record to have each commissioner declare any ex parte communications that they may have had on this quasi judicial zoning matter. And Mary will go through this, but this may be new to some of the new commissioners that a protest petition requires a 4 out of 5 vote, a supermajority vote to approve the request. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Good reminder. Would you like to comment on any ex parte conversations you've had, Commissioner Farmer?
No, just the emails that we had, and then I had a conversation with Erica Dvorsky where she said she was going to be sending a letter in, which we all received.
Mhm.
So.
How about you, Mike? Anything?
I think every one of the emails, everybody was copied on the same information that I received, so.
Okay.
Nothing.
I have none to report.
Emails, and Hugh Carter asked if I would support that project this afternoon.
Okay,
I have no ex parte to
Okay.
note.
thank you. Hopefully that fulfills that obligation. Mary?
I'm Mary Miller, a current planner, and this item, as you mentioned, is a rezoning request for a little over 2 acres at 2518 Ridge Court. The rezoning request is from RS7, which is single dwelling residential, to RM12, which is multi-dwelling residential. The developer and future landowner will be tenants to homeowner, and the project is to provide affordable senior housing. This map shows the location of the subject property with the green dot. It is east of Iowa Street and south of West 25th Street. And this kind of depicts the zoning in the area. To the west, we have commercial zoning shown in red along Iowa Street. To the east, we have Naismith Valley Park. The open space zoning is shown in blue. The brown shades are multi-dwelling residential districts. The darker, the brown, the higher density. We have RM32, RM24, and we have RM12, which is the zoning that's being requested for the subject property. The subject property is shown in black and is surrounded on 3 sides by RS7 zoning. This is a little misleading. To the west is the remainder of the lot that the property is on, and that is, it has the United Way office building on it. Land uses in the area are primarily residential, with the exception of the office building to the west. This is only a portion of the lot that's being rezoned or being requested to be rezoned to RM12. So one of the conditions on the rezoning is that the property would be replatted to divide this into a separate lot, and that is one of the conditions that's noted on the zoning ordinance. This
Can I
is
ask a question right here, please?
Sure.
The prior slide, please. So only half of that square is being developed?
Correct. The other half has the United Way building.
No, the whole square in black is being developed.
This is the part that's being developed.
Yeah.
This is the, I'm sorry, this is the entire lot here.
Right, okay.
It goes through the whole block and then,
That's what I thought. I misunderstood you when you said half of it was, okay,
Right.
I see. Thank you.
Yes.
this is the concept site plan that was submitted with the rezoning. It shows 7 duplexes for a total of 14 dwelling units. There will be 2 access points on Cedarwood Avenue. They provide a circle drive. The west portion is primarily for fire medical access, and it will be developed as a fire lane along the west side. The houses along Cedarwood Avenue will front Cedarwood to be similar to other houses in the area and create a typical streetscape. The other structures will have a rear-to-rear orientation. Their rears will face the outside property line, and most of the structures or the residences surrounding them also have their rear lots, rear yards along those property lines. This design, this layout would be compatible with the residential development in the area. This is a conceptual plan drawn up by the architect, which shows the type of structures that they're proposing. Most of the residences in the area on the west side of Cedarwood are single-story homes, and so these are shown as single-story residences. In the center is the community building, which is also single-story. And one of the recommended conditions on the rezoning is that this would be developed as single-story structures, so that it would be similar to other development in the area. We did receive public communications. Most of them, or many of them, were concerned with the loss of this area as open space for the neighborhood. And we did receive other comments related to drainage concerns with stormwater and also with the sanitary sewer capacity in the area. We forwarded the League of Women Voters letter to the city stormwater engineer and to the city utilities divisions, and I'll read the comments that they provided. The city stormwater engineer commented, "I have reviewed the letter dated September 22nd, 2013 from the League of Women Voters concerning the rezoning of 2518 Ridge Court and the corresponding stormwater concerns. I will first state that the 1996 Stormwater Master Plan does not address this location specifically. Having stated that, I can tell you that a drainage study will be required for this development, and it will be required to detain the 1% storm event, also known as the 100-year storm. Given the topography of the site, it is my opinion all of the stormwater runoff from the impervious surfaces from this parcel will be able to be detained." And the Assistant Director of Utilities provided this comment related to the sanitary sewer. "We had one backup reported downstream of this area in 2005. We have made repairs to the collection system because of our TB and routine inspections of this area. Some of the line segments are in regular route treatment schedules or preventative maintenance, and we have lined some of the pipe segments. This area is in the rapid inflow and infiltration reduction program, but I do not know what year it will be scheduled. The drainage issues will be addressed at the platting and site planning stage for the subject property, and the area is within the rapid inflow and infiltration reduction program for improvements to the sanitary sewer lines. The proposed development should not create a problem with either drainage or the sanitary sewer. However, this will be reviewed in more detail with the platting and the site planning of the property. The Planning Commission voted at their September 23rd meeting unanimously to recommend approval based on the findings in the staff report and subject to the two conditions that I've noted. One, that the property be replatted to create a separate lot for this development prior to the publication of the rezoning ordinance, and the second, that the development be limited to single-story structures. There was a valid protest petition submitted within 14 days of the Planning Commission meeting. Therefore, it will take a supermajority vote to approve this rezoning request, which would be 4 out of 5 votes. Other options that are possible, you could return it to the Planning Commission with direction. That would require 3 out of 5 votes, or you could deny the rezoning request. That would only require 3 out of 5 votes. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Dever, Commissioners. My name is Matt Goff. I'm a board member of Tenants to Homeowners, and pleased to be here tonight on behalf of the board. In February of 2012, the Douglas County Commission voted unanimously to gift this real estate to Tenants to Homeowners. The gift is conditioned upon our use of the property for affordable housing, and it would contain a deed restriction to that effect that's active for 15 years. We're here tonight to explore the feasibility of this site for senior housing. Tenants to Homeowners as an organization has put approximately 400 people in their first homes. We've created 62 homes that are in the Lawrence Community Housing Trust. We're the only one like it in the state. And we've actively managed currently 54 rental properties in Lawrence. As an organization, we typically focus on an opportunity to enable someone to become a homeowner, as the name Tenants to Homeowners implies. But in this case, we're making an exception. Our target market are seniors who are at the 80% income level or less. We consider them working poor, retired teachers, and overwhelmingly the senior citizens that we've heard from have expressed a desire to rent property as opposed to own property. We envision many of those will be selling homes that they've owned for a long period of time and will be looking for a lower maintenance option. This is a 7 building, 14 unit structure, and we're really excited about the opportunity. You'll likely hear tonight from some neighbors concerned about drainage and sewer issues, and I think Mary did an excellent job of explaining that those are issues that will be addressed as part of the process. And that being said, I'll stand for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Questions for Matt? Thank you.
I just had one quick question. There were some comments in here, the question who would own this property afterwards. It will be the tenant, they will not sell this to anyone?
Yes, sir. Tenants, the homeowners, would manage and operate the property as rental units. Their offices are at the United Way building, so literally next door. And that's the plan. And all of the properties we have, the way they're set up is to perpetuate the affordable purpose. That's how the land trust is set up, and that's part of our ongoing goal, is to provide housing in a permanently affordable environment.
So you will manage it but not own it?
We will own it, yes.
Own it and
yes,
manage it?
That's
Okay.
right.
I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there public comment on this item?
Good Good evening, I'm Stacy Hunter Schwartz. I'm a member of the Lawrence Douglas County Advocacy Council on Aging. Our chair is Judy Blome, and she could not be here this evening. She's asked me to read this letter to you. This letter of support comes from the Lawrence Douglas County Advocacy Council on Aging. The council has been in existence over 20 years and is appointed by both city and county commissioners. Members may serve for 2 3-year terms. The general purpose of the council is to serve as a voice of advocacy for older citizens by stimulating community awareness and interest in the development of comprehensive and coordinated service systems to aid seniors in attaining and maintaining self-sufficiency, personal well-being, dignity, and maximum participation in community life. Support of the Cedarwood Cottages is an excellent example of the reason for our existence. The proposed active senior living Cedarwood Cottages would bring much-needed affordable housing options to our community. In 2013, the Retirement Attraction and Retention Task Force identified affordable housing as one of the issues needing to be addressed. An AARP recent study showed that 50% of retired persons, including those with moderate pensions, are unable to afford the average cost of housing in their own communities. The plan for the development of 14 cottages to be built for moderate income seniors will be an asset to the neighborhood with the quality construction, walking paths, gardens, and meeting space. The project received a unanimous vote for land conveyance from county commissioners, and the Planning Commission gave another unanimous vote for a zoning variance. Please vote in support of this important project.
Thank you, Stacy.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I thought people would be swarming the microphone, but I'm only speaking for myself right now. I realize that this is not my neighborhood, but I live in East Lawrence, and I just wanted to say that we've worked with tenants to homeowners and the Community Land Trust for years, and so our neighborhood has a deep confidence in them. They've done 28 homes in East Lawrence so far, and there'll be more to come. They maintain their homes, they build greenhouses, I mean, you know, very environmentally friendly and very low utility costs. They maintain their properties extremely well. They have a very responsive staff. And then I also would ask the people in this neighborhood to maybe take a look at 11th and Rhode Island, where we worked with the county. The county did a long-term lease on some land they owned, and they did infill housing there. It's all accessible, it's all green. A lot of young families have moved in. It's just a small example of some of the work they're doing in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Jean Ann Stone King. I live at 2536 Ridge Court. I've been owner occupant for 25 years, and I would welcome this project to my neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you, Jan.
Good evening, I'm Linda Troxel. I live at 2409 Ridge Court. I have on the board of Tenants to Homeowners. I'm a senior. I volunteer in Lawrence in many capacities. This is, I think, a very important project. And as I come from an architectural background as well, I am really excited about it, and I hope you will vote for it.
Thank you, Linda.
Hi, I'm Jean F. Walter, and I live at 2543 Cedarwood, and the field is right behind our house. And I do have a DVD that shows the water coming in around our house from the field, and it's not even getting halfway down the field yet. It's coming in the back way of our house, and it looks like a river coming between our houses, going through our backyard and over to our neighbor's house to the side. And I do have it right here tonight. And I've also, last summer, also seen my neighbor across the street where the sewer has backed up into her garage. She has a closet there, and I could see it. And the city line for the sewer is right between her house and the neighbor's house. And it's sure funny, we kept telling the supervisor that came out, when the water line broke, because main line for the water line is there too. And the grass stays green all year long, bright green, even in the winter. So we know there's a problem somewhere along the line, but they haven't, of course, have found it, and she has spent, I don't know how much money on a plumber trying to solve the problems on her property, let alone I know other neighbors have problems with the sanitation sewers also. But it was like 20 years ago, a homeowner on 26th Street, which I knew, she told me, when the sewer backed up into her house, she could not clean it. She had to call the city to come in and clean her house. And the city then did a survey and found our area was not dug deep enough for the sanitation sewers and the storm sewers also. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean.
Good evening. My name is Gail Sigurdson. I wrote to each of you earlier this week as a representative of Kaw Valley Owl. And in that letter, I addressed what I think are more of the official concerns that have already been addressed by others. Obviously, the need for affordable senior housing, which has been identified by the task force. And this is an issue more for retention of our people who are aging in Douglas County right now, not for attracting new people. I think the drainage concerns are going to be addressed by this development, they're clearly already in place. And I think infill development is an established method for maintaining communities. All these things have been addressed by others. I'd like to speak briefly to what I think are the personal concerns of the neighbors, which I can understand. I moved into my home over 20 years ago, an established neighborhood across from a cornfield, which was wonderful, and we loved that. After about 8 years, they quit farming it. It became just an empty field where my kids could learn to mountain bike. They played football. I understand the attraction of that empty space. My neighbors, as it became developed, turned out to be multi-story, hundreds of college students that now live across the street from me, which would not have been my choice for neighbors, but it hasn't been what we expected. We have better bus service as a result. We have sidewalks. And even the fast drivers that I was worried about are actually the kids who were at grade school at the time that we built those houses. And now they're the speedy drivers in town. Neighborhoods evolve. That's what happens. You don't always get to pick your neighbors. If I could, I would pick seniors in a well-maintained building. But tonight's decision should be based on the community's need and the best use of community infrastructure. And I think that the Tenants to Homeowners project is that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
Hello, I'm Bonnie Effman. I am here representing myself, but I am in touch with a lot of seniors in the community, and I just want to speak to the great need for affordable housing for seniors in the community. And I see this as a project, exceptional possibility of a way of beginning to address that need. And I hope you will support the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Good evening, Commissioners. Stan Hernley. I'm a 30-year resident of Lawrence, as a founding member of Tenants to Homeowners many years ago. On the Historic Resources Commission, I'm here tonight as a private citizen. We are the architecture firm that's actually working on the project, so if you had questions about that, I could talk about that as well. But I see that the proposed use is very compatible with the single-family residential and with the RM12 that's directly across the street. The requested rezoning is for RM12, but the actual development is somewhere around 7 units per acre instead of the 12 units per acre that'd be allowed under RM12. So it's not nearly the density as what the zoning sounds like. other thing that I like about the project a lot is that it's a really good example of infill. You know, there's a lot of new housing that goes on the edge of town, requires a lot of infrastructure to extend out to that. This is a development that's using existing infrastructure and doesn't require a lot of capital outlay from the city or from the developer to get the project to happen. I just think that, you know, you really couldn't ask for a better neighbor than, you know, the name says that it's Active Seniors, and I believe that they're active seniors. I don't think that they'll be loud, active neighbors. I think they'll be quiet, active neighbors. So thank you very much.
Past 9 o'clock anyway. Can I ask a question, please? About Ms. Alfalter's comments, have you done anything, you are the project architect?
That's right, yes.
Have you, what can you say about drainage with her concerns?
Well, Dean Grove is going to be the engineer for the project, so he'll be doing all the site development, the detailed planning for that end of it. And so he'll be designing storm systems that will collect the stormwater. You know, the fact that there's water running off of the site now, we're going to be catching that and getting it into the storm sewer system. You know, I'm not the engineer, but in my mind, it's going to be a better condition afterwards than it is currently.
Okay, and then I was unclear if her comments were about storm sewer or sanitary sewer.
I think both.
Okay. Well, the drainage, okay, the storm sewer.
Right. So I think the storm sewer system will be improved for sure, and the sanitary sewer is on schedule for some of the testing that is going to be happening around town. Looking for
infiltration.
Right. Yeah.
Stan,
Yes.
Bob brought a good question I want to make sure is clear. The biggest concern that I saw, the most consistent concern, was related to stormwater. I think that's a reasonable problem in this area in general.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to figure out is, you know, I read some of the FAQs or the myth reality responses, things like that. I understand that by properly engineering the site to manage the stormwater, the runoff is a valid issue. It seems like it's not really serving the purpose of infiltration as it occurs right now, meaning there's a lot of runoff from the site onto adjacent properties.
Right.
Is that a function of some sort of layer of impermeable soil on top? Is it just because it's sloped higher than the rest of the property? It really doesn't seem to be serving the infiltration purpose, which I would like to see with open space like this for a neighborhood where there are stormwater concerns. So my question to you is, I know you deal with these projects. I haven't studied the soil or the subsurface here at all, but why do the neighbors complain of runoff so much from this property?
My understanding is that it's surface water is what's running off of this site onto the adjacent properties. So that would just be an issue. That would just be an issue of the contour of the land and where the water wants to go. Development that's.
Yeah, but normally wouldn't you, an open space like this would be able to receive a lot of infiltration if it was not disturbed?
Well,
or, didn't have a huge clay layer there.
If it's coming down fast.
I see.
It's not going to.
Yeah, it's running off.
It's not going to soak into the ground that fast.
Right.
So it's going to run off, even though it's grass.
So are the concerns you've heard all stormwater events or just the heavy rains? Is that what you've seen?
The ones that I've heard are the heavy events, is that it isn't able to soak into the ground. It's running off as surface water.
Okay.
As somebody who grew up on that lot playing football with my brothers and every neighbor kid around, on the southern edge of this property, and I noticed that you have a dry creek bed, you know, that is pointed out on this property. I think even to the farther south there. At the bottom of the hill on Cedarwood, there used to be a deep ravine there that took the water off of that site and ran it to the Naismith Valley. Now, I don't know what the city did. I mean, there was a time when I was a kid and wasn't up here, but I can't remember what actually happened underneath that roadway at that point, whether or not, you know, there's a pipe. There's some reason that no longer drains properly, and it was in that ravine that took it to the east there. So I think, you know, that, you know, and I notice it's not a condition, but I mean, obviously something that has to be taken into consideration, because knowing this site the way that I know it, I mean, I think a drainage plan has to be something that is considered as part of our approval of this document, because, or of this rezoning, because the truth of the matter is, I know at that point is, you know, where that drainage, you know, was allowed to go from, so.
So the stormwater study and the runoff that will be required to detain will be the amount that the impervious surfaces that we're creating would allow to run off. So our requirement will be to not allow any more to run off than what runs off now. In the way that the property is being developed, we'll be able to even capture water that's draining from the grass areas will also go through that system. So I think that there are ways to actually improve the situation for the neighbors versus making it worse.
Yeah.
So that would be the intent.
Mayor.
Okay.
Are these built on slabs?
Yes.
Have you given any consideration? This is a very difficult population. They're not mobile. What you're going to do during a tornado? Have you any thoughts of that central area having a safe?
We have not talked
area?
about that. Have we talked about that?
I don't want to add a huge cost to this, but at the same time, I'd like to create a situation where our most vulnerable population can walk 50 feet to safety.
My name is Rebecca Buford. I'm Executive Director of Tenants to Homeowners. And our standard practice is to create safe rooms in all slab homes. Now, whether we'll do a safe area that's in the common house or something like that, but ideally, if it pencils out, we'd put a safe room in the bathroom in every unit.
Very good. Thank you.
Got one more fellow.
Sure, please.
And Stan, so the problem with the sanitary sewer then is at storm time when the infiltration's getting into the sanitary sewer and then it's backing up.
That's what it sounds like, yes. And that's, my understanding is that the program that the city is taking on will address that.
But you don't believe it's a capacity problem?
I haven't heard that it's a capacity problem.
I guess
just
we would.
through regular usage.
We'd hear about it every day, I guess, if it was
Right.
capacity problem.
Right.
Most every day.
Additional public comment?
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Dave Affolter. I'm Gene Affolter's husband, and in a lot of ways, I don't know what to say tonight. We've obviously come heavily outnumbered. We've had a lot of people sign our protest over the last months. We've had people who have come to a county commission meetings. We've had other neighbors that have come to the last city-county planning commission a couple of weeks ago. We are very outnumbered tonight. We obviously don't have the polish and the attorneys and all the people who are board members and the witnesses and the senior folks and everybody who comes to, to cheer for this thing. I do know that there have been things passed around that we've heard about anyway, that we're against seniors. A lot of the people that are here for us right now tonight, my wife and I and our two neighbors here next door, are seniors. I was retired after a 38-and-a-half-year job here in town. My wife, she's disabled. Gentleman over here, our neighbor, is also retired, as well as his wife. Others have signed, they're retired. People have commented on the open space. I'm one of the big proponents of that. I am very in favor of this. It's been a park-like area for many, many years. Not an official park, but like they said a while ago, yes, it's nice to have and all that, but it's gotten to the point where Naismith Valley Park isn't that kind of park where you go to play and throw frisbees with your dogs. I've seen people up the neighborhood go play with your dogs and exercise them early in the mornings, kids over the years, and just all the different stuff you can think of. Yes, we've utilized it too for the same purposes. It's nice to have the open green space. We've seen too much of the open green space that seems to be bulldozed for more homes, more housing. I heard a little bit tonight, not on this, in our thing, I heard a little bit tonight about the proposed building of a hotel at the state park, one of my favorite stomping grounds. That's the closest thing for me to go to for walking and hiking and trails that's close to home. I don't have the opportunity to go someplace out in the real wilderness. That's a close wilderness. But that's kind of my feelings towards this kind of thing. It's nice to have someplace that's close right there in the neighborhood. Now, as far as some of the things that have been said, it was said a little while ago about the rain, that it seems to come, that the runoff is bad when it's raining heavy. My wife brought up that she has a DVD tonight. We took home movies. I went out with an umbrella and my camcorder in 1999. This is not what I'd call a really heavy rain. It's a moderate rain, but it's not what they're calling a heavy downpour or a heavy. But if you wanted to watch it, it's up to you. If you want to watch it, you'll see that the runoff is tremendous. It's a literal river running down through some of our neighbors that aren't here tonight, through portions of our yard and field. And
Got about 30 seconds to wrap it up. Thank you.
and that's all I've got to say. I wish we had more people here to speak up, but we're, like I said, we're outnumbered tonight. And thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you, Dave. Any other public comment?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Got some stuff I want to start out with here. I'm Don Hawley, I live at 2551 Cedarwood. Through most of my life as technical support or engineering at AT&T Communications. So I was the guy that when you wake up and have a 400-foot microwave tower in your backyard, that's where it came from. So when I see this right here with tenants to homeowners, I'm kind of shocked that anybody would resort to this type thing. They have this myth letter that came out, which and called individually almost all of us liars. I thought that was insulting and unnecessary. Anyone can show me how to use this thing?
Sure.
Thank you. Let's take it burning up my time. There you go. Okay. So the real myth of the whole thing is that tenants to homeowners have said we're all against seniors. That's not at all the case at all. What we all wanted is not to make a bad situation worse in our neighborhood. As you can see, Lawrence's inability to have sewers put on the utility easement, we live right here where this red truck is. The Tenants to Homeowners project will go right in here. The sewers, as you can see, are mostly on private property, so that's why most of the people was concerned about the sewage and everything. The people that said that it's great is a liar, because I talked to the people that do the camera work all the time. They said that it's 50 years old and it's in disrepair, and they're doing the best they can. Not knocking the city of Lawrence on that. When you take a look at the elevations and stuff, you can see right here by the curvature of the earth, this of course is substantially higher, as Mike pointed out. All of this is going to run right down in here, right to the bottom, right down here to this part. Luckily, there's no homes there. So that's what we was worried about. Is don't make a bad situation worse. The lady here says there's two curb cuts, there's 3 curb cuts. I don't know where all the stuff in it, but anyway, back to the rest of it. It's a situation where no one's against seniors. We welcome the seniors in the neighborhood. We're all seniors or disabled in our neighborhood. I have no problem at all. But like I say, we started out, we're supposed to have 2 meetings. They were quite a farce. Anytime we asked any question, we were shouted down. We never got a firm answer. The only people that's ever shown any interest at all in appropriately doing this was the engineering firm. The engineer, anytime that you brought up a question about the ambient light generated by this development, he's very concerned about that. He's concerned about the water situation. As Mike pointed out, I'm sure you live there in Cedarwood, and it's not any better. My new truck is one that got caught in the flood of the deal. This gentleman, I think, asked about why there was a concern of water. The concern is this is the only way for stormwater to even get out of there. All the way from 26th Street all the way up to 24th Street, that's the only one place where water can get in. So like I say, no one's dissatisfied with the seniors. It's nice that they mustered everybody up here, but it's all in vain. We are not against the seniors. We're seniors ourselves. The myth about there's never been any problems with law enforcement, with the crime in the area. I want to thank Mike personally. I have him on my speed dialer because anytime they've had any lawlessness or any problem, I've always had the opportunity to call him and get it taken care of. So it's just like anything in America. There's laws being broken and stuff, and luckily we have someone like him to go ahead and contact. So in short, it is a problem we just don't want to make a bad situation worse. That's the whole thing. We don't want a gun for seniors. We're not hating seniors. We're seniors. Closer to seniors than probably most of the people that got up here tonight. Other than that, thanks for your time. Mike, I personally want to appreciate everything that you've done for us, and I hope you consider, at least when you do this, I've talked to Scott and other people in the planning area, hopefully they won't take it. What we're worried about is when they cut this down to make this, and the architect did a great job. You know, he's been very responsive to our questions, one of the only ones that has. But when they cut this area,
Your time's about up, if you
no
don't.
problem.
Okay.
When it's cut down, it shows only a retaining wall right where my index finger's at.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see by the topo chart I just showed you, it's about 18 foot. So it's either gonna have a lot of dirt brought in here or a lot of dirt taken out of here. So the big myth about us hating homeowners, retirement, we welcome retired people. So hope that sets some of it straight. Thank you for your evening.
Thank you, Don. Okay. Any additional public comment tonight on this item? Okay. So, because of the changing in the zoning here, I think that's the biggest issue why we're here this evening. Do you guys have any questions or comments for staff about that? Or anything you need clarified before we talk about this or take a vote on it?
I have a question for
Sure.
staff. One of my concerns when I was on the planning commission is that zoning was changed. We now have a property that would go from an RS7 to an R12. which is a significant increase. If this were to, one of my concerns is that it's not unusual, if you go down 23rd Street, you'll see it, for a project to get zoning changed and then not occur for whatever reason, and then the zoning stays the same and something significantly bigger is built, and then we would have zoning for R12, which would be much greater. What protections do we have as for the people that live around there that wouldn't happen? Can we make this, can this be made contingent?
Yeah, Mayor, I can answer that. Commissioner Reardon, we are employing conditional zoning to this case, a tool that we have at our disposal. And the condition is in the ordinance that if rezoned, reads uses permitted within this district shall be limited to single-story duplex residences, accessory uses thereto, and one single-story community building. Essentially taking the concept plan and conditioning it without conditioning it right to the concept plan, but essentially that notion.
Okay, good, thank you.
And if they do something different than that, they have to come in and go through the rezoning process again.
Okay.
Okay, and for the staff, I'm concerned because the negatives we heard here tonight centered around stormwater and sanitary sewage. Will you go through again and tell us what the requirement is prior to development for the applicant?
Right, essentially the next step in development is going to be site planning the property and platting the property. And that's when another round or the first round really of the technical studies will be submitted to staff by the civil engineer that presents to us the stormwater plan, how they're going to recontour the site, what the cut and fill is going to look like, where the swales, where the retention, detention areas are. And essentially they can't, will of course work to make any known issues better for not only this project, but any neighbors. And that's often the case when we get a chance and opportunity to develop, that we take a known issue and try to make it better. But the code requires that the project essentially has to account for any new impervious materials laid on the ground, and can't send out any more water than is coming in today, plus that new impervious area. So they won't exacerbate any current condition. I think it's also important to note that the problems that we're seeing in stormwater isn't just off this one hill. I mean, it's coming from a regional area. And so we do what we can, the code does what it can to address those known issues. The sewer will be analyzed through a downstream sanitary sewer analysis. Again, if there are capacity issues, then the applicant is responsible for perhaps upsizing to that, but they're not necessarily responsible for any existing conditions that we have, like infiltration, like routing of the lines, those kinds of things. In talking with our utilities department, our understanding is that we're not out of the norm here in this area for issues, for known issues. And so if there are, we'd like to hear them from the neighbors so that we can make them part of our review of the area with this project. But I'm not aware that there are going to be any capacity issues here, so it's going to be linking into the public main system and carrying the sewage away.
Okay, with regards to the stormwater runoff for this development, so the rule is they can't add any more net runoff water than what is occurring right now. Do we have in our capacity the right to require more than what would run off normally? I mean, can we increase the requirement on the site?
Typically, when we know that there are ways to recontour to take care of acute issues, circumstances that are very directly taking care of or affecting a property, we will work to do that. That becomes a site plan issue. I've already advised some of the neighbors that that's a process that they get to participate in. They'll get notice of that site plan. When they get notice of that site plan, I've encouraged them to come down, meet with us, let's lay out the site plan, let's look and see. Matt Bond can sit with us all and explain the stormwater system improvements. And if it's to their satisfaction, great. That's all we can, that's what we can hope for here, is that it changes it to the positive for everybody, as well as the project before us. If not, there's a process that we can keep going in their participation.
Is it possible on this particular case that we request to approve the site plan?
You have employed that mechanism before?
I think that would be a benefit to the neighbors to know that we're going to go to the max to try and protect their interests, and it has to be passed by this body as opposed to an administrative certification.
You have two ways to do that. We can condition the zoning tonight, and the commission has employed that tool in the past. The administrative process itself does have an appeal built into it, that if they're not satisfied, you'll see that in any event. They can appeal that, and you can see that site plan at that point as well. So those are the two options you have available.
Well, I think in this case, it's a controversial site. It's got some issues. I mean, we've heard that. I'm sure that DVD would show us that it's got a lot of water on it. And there's all kinds of other issues surrounding the area, but for the interests of everyone concerned, I would like to see us approve the site plan so that we can see that the maximum's been done in order to help alleviate the problems.
Take into consideration the rezoning request that's come forward, the RS7 to the RM12, and we're actually going to develop to a density of 50% of what would be allowed. That is much appreciated by the work of tenants to homeowners. You know, I do have the concern, the mayor brought up a point a second ago, is, you know, there's something with that land and the drainage there. I know that, Scott, the point that you just made about water issues coming from regional areas out there, down Cedarwood, from the south, from the north coming down Cedarwood, and then, you know, the height of the property up off Ridge Court as it comes back to the east. I think that we definitely need to be involved with approving the drainage plan. Again, I'd like to have some kind of information about the improvements that were made under that ground at the corner of the south end of this property, because I don't know if it was just blocked off and allowed to run between the houses, but I know that used to carry a lot of water down through that little creek bed. So I would have no problem at all of approving the request of the zoning with the conditions of the site plan coming back to this body also. I think that makes all the sense in the world. And I think it does save a step, and, you know, saves a little bit of work for you. How's that? Okay.
I just had one further question. There was a mention of green space in here, and when I look at this plan, it's really mimicking, in many ways, single family. And maybe this is better for Stan than Scott, but either one of you, would the amount of green space here be similar if this were done in a single family design?
Commissioner, that would take a comparison of our code standards in those two aspects. I mean, some of it's going to be dependent upon individual lot coverage versus how we view lot open space on a more community multi-unit structure like this. In any event, the code does require a certain amount of open space, and you're gonna see that standard applied here.
But if you put individual lots on here and built a very big house, it could cover as much of the greens, make more impervious surface than if you just had this particular plan. Would that be correct?
Possibly. Again, it so much depends on the design of the street layouts and the drives and parking areas and fire lane in this regard. So what's important as we go through this is to employ the right open space standard and make sure this project has it.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, have you had any, we had a similar density transition, although it wasn't vacant. There was a lot of vacant land at that Knollbrook Court where there used to be a nursing home, skilled, on 27th Street, which is about a block and a half south of here, where you went from a single wagon wheel style nursing home with basically green space all around it to 16 or 18 units, 16 at least, single-family dwelling units on a parcel of land that was originally had a lot of green space. Have we had any concerns? The developments happened over the last 10 years, starting in like 2004 when they tore it down to today. Has there been a lot of complaints about runoff, I mean, it's basically the same tributary, just almost the exact same location or distance from the Naismith Valley Park drainage area. Have you had any major concerns from that
I'd have
development?
to ask Matt Bond that question. He's typically is going to be more knowledgeable
Yeah.
about that, and apologize for not having him
That's
here
okay.
tonight,
It's just,
given this.
it
but-
seems like almost an identical situation in that we're really paving more surfaces, putting more coverings on, and taking away green space in a already developed neighborhood in an almost exactly the same location. It wouldn't be anecdotal. It would be actual, I think, in this case, to say that the improvements that we've put in the ground, the improvements in the stormwater collection systems probably assisted in the runoff, I would think, but, because I haven't heard any complaints in that neighborhood, have you?
Well, Noldbrook, I think one of the things that you have there, Mayor, is that, you know, the street on 27th Street probably gets that water to the receiving stream about as quick as it can at Naismith there. Also, behind the houses on 26th Street there, that water would run back to the east there and into the receiving stream there. So, and as far as hearing things, no, I haven't heard a whole lot from that development.
It's your old stomping ground. I figured you might have heard something from your former neighbors.
I think I laid out those lots.
Okay. So, Jeremy, do you have anything else to add?
You know, this reminds me of when I was a kid. We lived on Winterbrook Drive, and right there at the south end where Winterbrook dead ended was a huge field, and I used to play basketball down there, but I was pretty upset when they started to develop it, you know, into just duplexes and single family homes. And I've got maybe a question and then just some further comments. Those homes, and I mean, this happened way before, obviously, I got to the city commission, but there had been some folks that had complained of their foundations slipping. Would there be a way to make sure that that wouldn't happen with the approval of a site plan, to make sure that those foundations wouldn't move over the course of 10 years? Because if this drainage issue is as bad as everybody says that it is, that's kind of the same deal that we dealt with there.
Well, again, the intent is to make the drainage better, or at least not harm the existing, not exacerbate whatever current issues there are. There's no mechanism that I know of. I mean, if they're having foundation issues, it's because they're having issues today, because we have clay soils, because there's some runoff, because of any number of various reasons that they may be having issues. And there's no city mechanism that that correlates directly one project's impact to another, unless there's just an obvious impact to it. We do some of it downtown when we're talking about adjacent buildings. In this sense, I wouldn't think there would be a requirement or any way to track whether or not the impact of this project is affecting the neighborhood foundations if they're already experiencing damage and trouble.
Oh, this is a different spot, completely different spot where but I just wanted to make sure that these foundations, to do due diligence, to make sure that these foundations wouldn't slip over the course of.
My understanding is that there's many in the neighborhood that have already had foundation damage and are repairing them, even today.
Okay. I guess the only other comments that I would have is these kinds of developments, as far as multifamily housing, are pretty prevalent in progressive communities, and you've got. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the features here that I'm pretty excited about, but you've got solar on these units, you've got fruit trees, garden plots, you've got a pondless water feature, a rain garden, a shade garden, and some open space. And so, I understand the draw to having a field, in your backyard and that sort of thing, but this is gonna be a really neat thing for our community, and it's not just houses. It's a lot of other stuff too, kind of a commons type atmosphere. And so, Stan, great job on this concept, and I really like it. And I hope that we can work with the neighbors to ensure that their concerns are mitigated. I think if we're going to have a development on this piece of property, this is the best case. This is the best development that we could have there, especially because it fits in with our plan for retiree attraction and retention. So.
Okay. Would anyone like to form a motion or put any kind of caveats on any motion that we might make today?
Well, I really hope that the commission will agree to bring the site plan back here so we can make sure that we feel like we've got the runoff and the drainage just as good as we can. So there were 2 conditions on that rezoning.
Mm-hmm.
So we would add a 3rd condition. And how would you state the 3rd condition? Just the city commission approve the site plan?
Yeah, we'll work on some language that meets that direction.
Okay, so then I would move that we approve ordinance number 8918 on the first reading with the 3 conditions.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Shum, seconded by Commissioner Farmer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you for the comments. Next item on the agenda is to consider items related to the former farmland property.
Mayor, members of the commission, one of the more substantial projects that your staff has been working on for several years is the redevelopment of the former farmland nitrogen facility out on 23rd Street. The memorandum that we have on the B item there provides a good chronology on our work today. It is one of the more substantial infrastructure development projects that the city has ever undertaken. We're obviously very grateful for the work that Roger Johnson and Amina Brothers and Bartlett and West have provided, but Chuck Souls, David Cronin, Matt Bond get a lot of work, get a lot of credit in my mind for essentially being the developers of this site. One of the pledges that we had early on was that we wanted more, my quick saying was more shovels than lawyers. We had spent a lot of time on the paperwork aspects of acquiring the property and getting it characterized, and we really wanted to make progress in that regard, and we believe that we have. We're now entering a phase, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in the infrastructure, where a lot of our focus now is on marketing the property. We've met with the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce in regards to that, and plan to aggressively market the lots for your goal and the community's goal of getting primary jobs to that location. As part of our desire to effectively market the property, we have sought a new name for the property. It's not meant to be disrespectful to its history. The farmland fertilizer plant was a wonderful employer for a number of people in the community and was a great asset for its lifetime, but we think that it's now time to move to a different name, to characterize it differently in the future. We also have the sometimes confusion that when we talk about farmland, people will think that it's land that's being farmed on. So we think that it's appropriate to move to a different name. We have been working on this over the past few months. A number of staff members have been involved in researching what we wanted to do, looking at possible names. I particularly want to recognize Greg here, Thomas, that has been involved in that effort. It's typical that if you like it, we all want to get credit. If it's a blame, you can look to staff. We don't want to infer that he was the sole author of this, but he was very wise in his counsel about how to look at naming, and we appreciate that work. So our recommendation this evening is that we be directed to refer to the property as Lawrence Venture Park, that we work to get the right marketing materials, again in cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce, that's going to be the lead marketer and attractor of primary jobs in the community, and that we're going to work on some signage out at the location as well. Once we're at a point in the infrastructure where we know that the sign's going to be able to stay there for a while. So that's the first recommendation that you have, and then I'm going to have, if you want to talk about that now, or we can go on to the other item that relates to Venture Park, and that is the change order and a little bit status report on the infrastructure. don't know what your preference is, if you deal with the name or first, or if you want to talk about all of them together.
Let's do the name first.
Name first.
Then we just can refer to it as Lawrence.
Then we can stop with the farmland.
I think it's a great name, Mayor. I really do. I appreciate all the work that Greg and Megan and everybody involved. I think it's a super name and works very well. And I do want everybody to understand as you know, we just rezoned a big part of my childhood. And, you know, so I'm always going to remember, you know, the field behind the nursing home is a place I played football and stuff. But so if there's times that I might make the mistake in referring to the Venture Park as farmland, I understand it's because it's been a part of my life for a long time. So
I've indicated to Chuck that every time that I use the name inaccurately, I'm going to donate another $1 to the United Way. So that'll serve as a good incentive to me. Now, if I say the former farmland property,
yeah,
I think I'm okay. It doesn't count. $1? Okay. So we'll find a way to remind ourselves of that. And, you know, we've all been in Lawrence long enough to where we refer to roads different ways. We've ran across somebody that called Wakarusa Drag Strip Road a while back. So
been there too.
it happens.
I like the name. I think it speaks to a certain level of energy and excitement and anticipation that we're going to see out there. And when you drive by and you see the total transformation of the property, it just seems to fit really well. And I think that's going to help us in our marketing, and that it's just going to connect people with the energy level that we've got going here in Lawrence in terms of development out there. So I like it real well.
We need to have those graphics up on the screen. Oh. That is cool.
Terry, you got any opinions?
I think this is an excellent name. I particularly like the graphics that go with it.
Yeah.
I think it's somewhat patriotic, even though the colors are not red and blue, it's green and blue. I think that reminds you that this is one time was green. And I think it's excellent. And I would move that we have the staff or direct the staff to refer to this as and name this as the Venture Park.
No, I'm sorry. One memo up.
That's all.
You have any strong feelings?
I will second Commissioner Reardon's motion.
That's a strong feeling. All right, so we have, we're gonna informally or formally, whatever you want to call it, motion by Commissioner Reardon, seconded by Commissioner Farmer to refer to it as Lawrence Venture Park.
Public comment.
Oh, public comment? Really? I forgot, sorry. Well, you guys motioned, that's why I forgot.
Well, this one.
Good, yeah, good.
Hi, I'm Greg Thomas. I'm a professor of design and director of the Center for Design Research, which is the old Chamney Farm on Billings. And before coming to Lawrence, I had my own design firm in Los Angeles for over 30 years, which we specialized in branding, destination branding, which included countries like Australia, New Zealand, Austria, and then we do a lot of city branding. And when I first talked to Mr. Corliss and staff about this, I was willing to participate in this on a pro bono basis because I live here now and believe in the city and what you're doing out there. And so work with staff to help them in terms of what are the key things in naming and how you go about it, and through numerous applications, there does come one that surfaces that does resonate. I think in terms of what the park is eventually going to be, it's a very positive outlook on this thing. And I think everybody's going to be very pleased, as I've noted from the commissioners, that it does resonate with you, and it does say something very positive about the development and the city.
Well, Greg, we appreciate your pro bono work, but I think I appreciate the professional look, feel, names. I've done this in the past. I know some of us have all tried to come up with names. It's very difficult. Yeah. And it's really hard to please everyone. I'm shocked that we have 5 people that I'm literally speechless at this point in time. That's why I think I was out of sorts, that nobody wanted to just blow the name up. So this is great, and we really like the logo.
We've come a long way from Harvest Hills.
We have. I still thought Nitro Park was good, but you know, I think this one's
I
better.
remember the mayor saying that, no, Harvest Hills, that's where like old people go to
Yeah, it sounded like
leave.
a nursing home is what I meant. That's right.
Commissioners, we've also learned a lot about other industrial parks as we have tried to imitate or copy their names. So it's been a good process, not just the naming and the branding, but learning a lot about what other communities do in this area.
Yeah, it's great. We really appreciate your work and help. Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment on this? Okay.
Megan's got nothing. Megan's got nothing.
Megan's already done everything.
Yeah, that's
to
right.
help, so.
Did we vote?
I thought, well, I started and then we stopped,
I'm
so
sorry.
that's okay.
I'll be
I
nice.
appreciate being told proper protocol here. So I had a motion,
I would resubmit my motion.
resubmitting your motion, and
I will second the
your
resubmitted motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We have a name. Now we get to spend more money on that name.
Haven't spent much money on the name, but we are going to spend more money on infrastructure. At least that's what
On Venture Park.
David Croner is going to talk about. The work to date, and then some of the proposed change orders on the infrastructure out at Venture Park. The work has gone very well. We knew that there were going to be surprises in regards to this work. We also had a strong confidence level that we would be able to manage those surprises well and reasonably within costs. I think we're able to do that. David's going to talk a little bit about where we are in regards to the infrastructure work and the change orders and the future. David.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. David Cronin, City Engineer. We've kind of outlined the history of the project and the details and where we're at and some of the change orders in this memo. As you know, we bid a project this spring for infrastructure improvements at Venture Park and some site grading as well as a bid alternate in the contract. And that was awarded to R.D. Johnson. The total cost of that project was just less than $5 million. And so throughout the spring and summer, we've made a tremendous amount of progress on the site. We've done a lot of site grading, a lot of cleanup, a lot of things you can't see, excavation of old foundations and cleanup of old asbestos sites in the ground. And so we've kind of accumulated a tab of change orders so far throughout the project. And I would also mention that the original completion date for the infrastructure project was this November, but due to a lot of these unforeseen conditions and some of the delays that's caused the contractor, we will very likely delay the completion of the project until the spring. So far to date, we've done most all of the site grading on the front lots, which would be between the new East-West Road and K10. Have cleared that and are now beginning to grade in the road, install storm sewer and water line. The sanitary sewer project is close to being complete. So we're hopeful to get a lot of those things done here with the street as far as storm sewer and water line this fall and into the winter, and finish the street paving portion in the spring. And hopefully have it complete early in 2014. So some of the items we've outlined, kind of the change orders and the costs so far. We've a lot of these things just weren't in the original contract with the infrastructure project, and things that we didn't know the extent of. So we've removed the old lab building. There's some asbestos removal with that, transite. Same thing for an old, one of the farmlands, old compressor sites had some transite removal in the soil, and so we We did that project. Some erosion control items that were needed to comply with KDHE's notice of intent for stormwater runoff, and sediment basins were constructed, and so there's a significant amount of earthwork and work involved with that. Some additional costs with running the water line through the nitric acid site, which sounds really bad, but really we're just doing some extra work to fuse the pipe together to meet KDHE standards, so some costs with that. And additionally, we've been working with our Parks and Rec department to landscape the front berms, the first two phases of the landscaping on the overall site. So we've hauled in some compost from the city compost site at 11th and Haskell. We had some excess compost, so we hauled that over to the site. We're mixing that up with the topsoil that we did salvage from the site to get a nice soil base for future plantings of trees. So we're working on landscape plans for that, and we intend to begin work on planning landscaping in the winter and spring of 2014. So that's kind of a general overall picture of the work, the change orders we've done so far. They total approximately $1 million. So to date, we are getting close to about $6 million for overall encumbered costs on the project. Our original benefit district was about $7.8 million, so we still have $1.8 million money that is still available, I guess you could say, to complete additional work on the site. So we've identified a couple of potential additions to the project, and I'll kind of go through those real quick. The first one, which we're calling on in the memo, change order 14, is to extend the O'Connell Road north to 19th Street. We're going to work with R.D. Johnson to complete that section of roadway, which was not in the original project, just to increase connectivity to East Lawrence and the grid network over there. That work would still fall under the original contract with the bid unit prices that we have with R.D. Johnson. And so they've agreed to extend the contract and the prices to complete that work. And we would work with them with some city staff oversight to review drainage needs. And so we would kind of do in kind of a design build type addition. We wouldn't complete the final plans, but work with designing the plans on the project as we construct it, which I think is the right thing to do in this case, because we have limited grading. I think we have a good understanding of our street typical section, extending that. So I think it's relatively straightforward, and that will save us some design costs and save us time to produce. That would be the time it would take it to produce plans. So we are recommending that as the only future change order to give us authority to start pursuing. Other things that I wanted to mention on the site, there are some landfills on what we're calling C North, and just for a reference, I will bring up the site map of where that's at. They are up in this area. So K10 is down here. Here's O'Connell Road going north. Here's our east-west street that we're building through to East Hills Business Park. And so we have all of this, the grading complete in B South and C South. There's some old landfills. There's 3. There's a lime sludge that was disposal of lime from their water treatment process when they were running the plant. There's an insulation landfill, which does not contain asbestos, but it's just old insulation from some of their equipment. And then there's a large solid waste landfill that contains daily trash, I guess you could say, and that they used for a number of years, and it's quite large. And so we knew before we did the project there was a landfill in there somewhere. It's not exactly where we thought it was as far as the deed restricted area. on the plat, but we've uncovered it. We kind of know the extent of it, and it will probably be a significant cost and something that we will want to work with KDHE to see if any of the remediation funds could be used to move the landfill. It's not hazardous material, but it would need to be trucked to another permanent solid waste landfill like Hams or Deffenbaugh. So we don't have a firm cost on that yet. We're still getting numbers on hauling costs and fees for that. We just uncovered it here in the last week, and we're going to get some GPS shots and get a firm understanding of the cost before we proceed on that. But it's generally in an area that's not going to, that I wouldn't think would be the first desirable site to build on, because we are doing, we have completed final grading on the, like I said, the B South, C South. We're going to complete the Site A over here on the west end. And we have done some grading in the C North. So we have that, and then other items I wanted to mention were, we have a debris pile of all the concrete that we've been excavating, that the contractors excavated on this project, that the city crews excavated last year to remove all the foundations. We've kind of piled it up in the back of the site, and so eventually we would want to do something with that, bury it, crush it. If there's a way to recycle it, we could look into that. It's got some big steel in it, so we don't really know if a contractor would be able to reuse it. But it's something that, you know, in the future we would want to take care of. So we got a preliminary estimate on that at $100,000, but we're going to hold off on moving forward with that. And additionally, there's just a lot of rock on site that we didn't know of when we bid the project. We got rock borings, and they're good to a certain extent, but in between, sometimes you run into rocks shallower than you think, and it causes additional cost in the contractor. And so in this, also in the C North area, there's a lot of rock, and we've kind of chosen just to leave it be for the time being until possibly a future tenant wants to come in, and maybe it wouldn't all need to be removed. So at this point, we're still recommending just to leave the rock excavation and see in the future if it's something that it's economical for us to remove and do some additional grading in those areas. So that's kind of a rundown. It's a lot of things, but if you have any questions about any of these, I'd be happy to try to answer them for you.
Looks good out there, it really does.
Yeah. It looks good. Would the, changing 19th Street, or changing that street, would that affect when you move that substation?
Yeah, that's another good point. There is one transmission pole that would prohibit us from completing the connection to 19th Street with the extension that I failed to mention, and that will be relocated in 2015. And we also have plans to improve 19th Street, going to the west there in 2016, kind of an idea for timeline. So we wouldn't open that connection with the extension. We just want to use the unit prices that we have now with the contract and get it constructed, and then likely close it off until those improvements are made and the substation's relocated and the pole's out of the way, and then open that up.
You're going to build the road, the poles in the way?
No, we're going to build the majority of the road. The pole is up at basically at the connection of 19th and O'Connor.
All right.
So
one pole in the way.
pole.
Yeah, I was just looking for
So
that.
that one pole will have to remain until 2015, and we would just leave it and build around it.
Got it.
So.
Okay. I was thinking you meant closer to the substation, and I didn't see that. I thought
Yeah,
they were
so-
moving all that stuff, but so. Okay, good. So I pointed out to Dave earlier, I want to make sure you guys know this, that I think that all costs associated with environmental issues and contamination on the property need to be addressed and/or underwritten using the proceeds from our trust fund, and that I would volunteer to do whatever it takes to go meet and talk and convince anybody we can that anything related to landfills or environmental contamination or any kind of KDHE overseen activity we should be able to use the trust fund as long as we can show judicious use of the funds so that we can carry out the actual remedial action plan and the cleanup as required by the plan. I just want to make sure everyone knows that, that's what that money should really be used for. And David's pointing out some things that are clear that, there's some surprises, but I think we knew some of this stuff was there. We just didn't know where it was at. I think there's some of the things were unknown, like the asbestos on the buildings, the transite. But overall, I think we have to insist on that. And I told Dave that I really wanted to be a part of that. Whatever it took, we need to lobby them to use the funds for those purposes.
So I was going to mention that as well. Thanks,
Okay.
Mayor, for that. We're going to coordinate an appropriate meeting. I think we want to get our hands around all of the dollar amounts, have one presentation to them as opposed to dribble in a number of different increments. Yeah, so that is going to be something that we plan on doing. And there's a process for all of that. May have to amend the RAP, which is the remedial action plan, which then would amend the CAD, which is the corrective action decision. So I mean, there's a process for all of that, and we'll work to encourage them to see the need for that. But we still need to do the work, which is what we're approving tonight, but it should be with the understanding that we are going to talk to KDHE about using the remediation funds to do that. And I think that we'll be in good shape to do that because we will have even that much more time behind us where we have executed a number of other remediation items and used that money. Whether or not we use that money now or it just sits there and eventually we would have it when all the remediation work is done. The community is responsible, the city's responsible for doing all of the remediation work, regardless of what the balance is in that trust fund. So I think we'll have some success with that discussion. I wanted to just point out a little bit, the O'Connell extension, we think is helpful for a number of things. It opens up some of the additional property further to the north of the east-west road. When we do the improvements on 19th Street, it will be important to have that O'Connell Road improved. Rebuilding that road is going to be an inconvenience to those property owners, those residents along 19th Street. They'll want a way out, so that can serve that as well. And also we get the unit price discussions. We are following through on your direction this summer, having discussions with the county about the county's participation in 2016 to help us rebuild 19th Street. The county is a property owner with the fairgrounds along a healthy chunk of the south side of 19th Street, so we hope to have some of their financial participation as well. Oh, thanks, Chuck. One of the things that we have also noted, it does not impact any of this work, doesn't impact the validity of the existing benefit district, except that when our bond council was reviewing the special assessment benefit district resolution that we adopted, it did not include some, I think there's like 2 or 3 of the smaller tracts and greenway tracts of the properties. So what we're going to have to do is go through the process of creating the benefit district again. Doesn't impact the work, doesn't mean that what we've done so far can't still special assess the property. We just want to special assess all of the city-owned property, and we missed apparently 2 or 3 of the tracts in the legal description. So what you'll see on a future consent agenda is setting a new public hearing date. We'll have a new public hearing. We'll go through that process. We're the only property owner out there, along with Westar and AT&T. Both of them were included in the original benefit district, so it's not impacting them. It's just clarifying the procedure for all of that. Something that our bond council recommends that we do now as opposed to wait until later. So you'll see that sometime in the future.
I think it'd be helpful if Matt made a short presentation as to the status of the remediation there as well, since we're talking about all the improvements. I think the liability associated with it as well is the remediation, and we're actively spending dollars on that as well. And I think there's several commissioners that probably don't know a whole heck of a lot about it since we did it before, and I think it'd be nice for the community to know kind of where the contamination levels are at and and how we're working with KDHE, so that'd be good. Maybe when you bring it all together, it'd be nice to just
That's a good suggestion.
briefly touch on it. Doesn't need to be extensive, just how things are going.
And if there is a way to design the road so it's not a big cut through to 19th Street eventually and increase that traffic, I would appreciate that.
Commissioner, that's a good point. When we had neighborhood discussions in regards to the master plan and the platting of this property, that was one of the items that we wanted to work on, was to make sure that it would not increase cut-through traffic onto 19th Street. We think that we can design 19th Street in a way to discourage that. One of the ways to do it, obviously, is not open it up until 19th Street is improved, which is one of the commitments we've made as well, is that we weren't going to open up a connection at this property until 19th was approved. But in the design of 19th Street, I think we can do it in a way to discourage cut-through type traffic. Obviously, we do want to encourage the neighborhood to use that street in accessing that, and is a great way to get to the jobs we hope to have on the property.
Yep. Okay, very good.
Just one comment real quick. I mentioned to you a second ago, Mayor, it's great to see all the improvements, and we're very fortunate to be able to have, a work center, employment center that's going to be, adjacent to the city and adjacent to park that we already have. But, in looking at this and realizing too the former business that was at the location, I'll put it that way I don't get in trouble, at the Venture Park, is that, provided, great number of paychecks for a whole lot of people during the time they were here. But, just looking at the site and realizing how, times are a whole lot different, because professional planning has changed a whole lot of things that would not have happened on this site, I'm gonna guess. So.
Probably wasn't in the city limits, was it?
Not at that time.
It's only been within the city limits within the past 5 or 6 years, I think, is when we finally
We annexed it.
annexed it.
Yeah.
The city came to it.
We've come a long way.
Yeah, amen, brother. Okay, so any feelings or opinions? I know we've all read the change orders. We hate to spend more money, but I think we anticipate that.
Public comment.
Yeah. Is there any public comment on this item? I didn't see too many bodies. Thank you.
Just say, KT, you want to say anything?
KT, you got anything? I see that. I see that.
Mayor, I move approval of change orders 1 to 13 and direct staff to begin negotiations with the contractor to complete design build work.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Farmer, seconded by Commissioner Reardon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item is to receive a project update. 23rd and Iowa reconstruction and geometric improvements.
All right, I put together a quick, oh, wrong one. There we go. Quick summary of our 23rd and Iowa project that we're getting close to bid. Just as an update for all the commissioners and where we're at and kind of the progress that we've made over the last couple of years. Quick history of the project. In 2011, and let's see if I can make this full screen. Nope. 2011, 2012, KDOT allocated some federal funds that we had made applications for safety and geometric improvements for the intersection. In 2012, the City Commission authorized staff to begin design work and approve $1.5 million in general obligation bonds for construction. And that was in addition to the safety and geometric improvement funds, which was a total, the geometric improvement funds were $700,000. So that was a total of $2.2 million in improvements. The city hired BG Consultants to design the project. in 2012, and over the last year, they've been working on plans for the improvements. Kind of a quick scope of the project. We're going to reconstruct all of the pavement in the intersection with concrete pavement. And I will hop back and forth to our map with our proposed layout. Let me zoom in here. So everything in the light gray is concrete pavement reconstruction. The darker gray is a mill and overlay to tie it in. So what we've done is to the extent of our budget, we are replacing the pavement with concrete, which is more durable. It holds up better to stopping traffic and turning movements. In addition, we are going to replace all the traffic signal poles, mast arms, and signal heads with the new signal equipment. We're also going to be installing new light poles to help enhance the intersection. Some of the geometric improvements that we're doing with this project, we're going to add dual left turn lanes on all approaches. Right now we have the dual left turn lane on the north and south approach of Iowa, and right now we just have the single left turn lane on 23rd Street, Clinton Parkway. So we'll be adding the dual left turn lanes on all four directions. We are going to reconfigure the right turn movement. Right now it's kind of a higher speed, free flow right turn movement, which works well in a rural environment with less traffic. But we've seen a significant amount of accidents due to the high speed movements and the merging in and out of traffic, and the additional turn lanes that are further downstream from the right turn movement. So we're going to reconfigure the right turn lane, and a driver would come up and yield to oncoming traffic before merging into the through lane. And so this has safety benefits from a driving perspective, and it has pedestrian benefits from someone wanting to cross the intersection. Traffic's moving at a slower speed, and it's just safer to cross. We are going to do some landscape improvements and irrigation on the quadrants around the intersection. So this is kind of a general landscape plan that we've developed with a consultant, and we've worked with our Parks and Rec staff to work on the plan and what type of trees and plants and shrubs we would plant around the intersection, and we're going to irrigate that as well. And working with KU on their future improvements for the northwest corner, and they've identified the need for some sort of large sign, and so we've kind of designed that corner with their needs in mind. Other improvements we're making, we are going to bring the existing sidewalk, which is in front of the retaining wall on the southwest corner, where Verizon and Best Western is at. We have an existing 5-foot sidewalk that's close to traffic. It's always wet due to runoff going through the wall. So we're going to bring the shared use path, an 8-foot wide path behind the wall, up around to the intersection, which would be a safer path for bikes and peds. Additionally, we are looking at closing the left out turn that exists now from the northeast corner, which is where Hastings is at, and that is an improvement that the state has kind of mandated through using the safety funds. We've been meeting with property owners and letting them know about that, and that's a safety issue. And so far, they've been pretty responsive to the idea of doing that, and we are still working with them to decide if we're going to have one or two right in, right out entrances on that corner. On that corner as well, we are going to fill in the sidewalk gap that exists now, so make that improvement. So we've kind of looked at a lot of things with this project and taken some time, and we've met with adjacent property owners to get pedestrian easements, and we're still working through that phase of the project. And so a lot of these things that we've done, we think comply with our complete streets policy, the landscaping and irrigation for the aesthetic improvements, the safer pedestrian crossings, completing that sidewalk gap in front of Hastings on the north side of 23rd Street, and then relocating that shared use path behind the retaining wall on the southwest corner. Our overall cost estimate for the project is now a little more than $3 million. That includes the engineering design, construction, and easements. We have a myriad of funding sources here. We have our original $500,000 and $200,000 in federal KDOT authorized funds for safety and geometric improvements. We have $50,000 from KDOT's 23rd Access Management Funds, which is a pool of money to improve corridor management along 23rd Street, consolidate accesses and make improvements in that regard. So they have added $50,000 to the project from that funding source. We originally, I mentioned we had allocated $1.5 million in general obligation bonds through our turnback agreement with KDOT on 6th Street and Highway 40, which I believe we discussed before. KDOT has agreed to put $1 million in additional funds into this project, so that will reduce our general obligation bonds by the same $1 million. And so we're down to $500,000 in general obligation bonds for the project because the other $1 million has been allocated to other city projects. And then the balance of the project will be made up of infrastructure sales tax funds. And right now we're anticipating $800,000 in funds to balance the project cost. A little bit about the schedule, where we're at now. We are acquiring easements and producing final plans here in the next month. We are aiming for a state letting date of February 19th, 2014. Construction would likely begin in late March or early April during the spring sometime. And we're estimating a duration of 6 to 8 months. So one of the challenges of this project is sequencing. That's what everyone wants to know about, and how are you going to reconstruct this intersection while maintaining traffic. And so that's why we hired VG Consultants, and Jason Hoskinson's here, and he could probably answer any other questions, specific questions you may have. But we've kind of generally phased this into 8 sequences. The first thing we're going to do is remove the existing raised islands and medians for temporary pavement, so we can kind of get cars to shoe fly around the construction areas of the project. When we do that, we'll install temporary signals. There'll be wood poles and wire strands across the intersection, and that'll enable us to phase the project so we can move the signal heads as we phase the traffic into different lanes. And then we kind of split up the project into 2 halves of the intersection. We'll reconstruct the west half first, so all Iowa traffic will be shifted to the east. And during those phases, we will shift 23rd Street and Clinton Parkway traffic north and south as we reconstruct pieces of the intersection in concrete. And those phases can take several weeks at a time as we remove concrete, replace it, get it to cure. And it's a challenge too, because we want to line up the pavement markings with the saw cut lines of the construction joints of the concrete as we phase it. And then we'll do the east half of the intersection. Iowa traffic will be kind of shifted to the west side of the intersection. 23rd Street traffic will shift periodically. So throughout all these phases, we still intend on maintaining through movements and left turn movements in all direction. In the first phase, it'll just be a single lane of through traffic and 1 left turn lane. And that's primarily just to get the islands removed, get the additional pavement, temporary pavement put back into place, and to give the contractors room to work. So that should go fairly quickly. And then once we get into phases 2 through 8, Like I said, traffic will be shifting, but in some phases, we can get 2 through lanes of traffic and a left turn lane. Some movements, it'll be 1 through lane and a left turn lane, but we will maintain all the turn movements predominantly through the project. There may be a day or two when construction is prohibits one or the other, a right turn or a left turn, just for a short duration while we're working or pouring concrete. So it's kind of been challenging to come up with a sequence that works and we get the project done in one season, but we think we've done that. And like I said, we've worked with adjacent businesses. We've met with them one-on-one to discuss easement acquisitions for pedestrian and construction easements. And we had a public meeting last week for the neighborhood and businesses. And we had a decent turnout, and we've had a lot of positive comments about the project. So with that, I would probably defer it over to our utilities department so they can talk about the water line replacement before our project.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. Philip Shashelski, Assistant Director of the Utility Department. Need a little warm up in the Iowa and 23rd Street area, so we're going to do a water line just ahead of the intersection improvements. We're requesting a bid date this evening of October 29th for a project that will replace the water main from Iowa east to Osdale. The current water main is just back of the curb on the north side. It's an older thin wall PVC pipe, not necessarily problematic right now, but with the extent of the intersection improvements that Public Works is undertaking, we want to get a new pipe in the ground in a good location for the future. So that pipe is going to be brought into the north drive lane, the northwestbound drive lanes is where we will construct the new pipe. We anticipate the project will be completed in early March, just ahead of their start of construction for the intersection improvements. One of our major challenges is getting that in the ground. We'll have a period where we have the westbound, the free right turn that David was talking about changing to kind of emerge in a yield. That will basically be out of service for the duration of our project. We need to set up at that location to drill the pipe in under the pavement along that area, keeping the entrances to all of the businesses along there open. Those will stay open during that entire time. However, we'll have that right-hand turn lane on the north side, on the westbound side, closed off as part of the project. And we'll modify the island there in that northeast corner so that what is now the right-hand through lane westbound on 23rd Street can make the right turn on around that island northbound on Iowa. So that'll be an initial closure there to modify that island, but the majority of the work will take place in that northernmost lane of 23rd Street while we put that piece of pipe in. So this evening we're asking that we set a bid date of October 29th. Subsequent to opening those, we would hope to award the next week and get a contractor out there in December and going.
Philip, you're saying December till March to work on that section?
Yes.
And will that right turn lane be closed during that 3-month period?
That would be closed for pretty much the duration of that period of work.
And how will you accomplish the installation of the new pipe?
The new pipe is going to be bored in place, horizontally directional drilled, so we'll have, depending on which way the contractor sets up, we'll have pits at each end, one at Iowa, one down at Osdale, and we'll basically drill that pipe, drill a hole, and then pull that pipe in a continuous fashion. So it'll be in the ground, we'll get it in and tested, and at that point, we'll have some temporary shutdowns for each of those businesses as we shift their water service over from the old one to the new one. So it won't be a wholesale open trench. However, because of the access we need on either end, it's most efficient to just close that lane as opposed to closing it around those two pits and allowing people to bump back out. We'll just close that off. However, we will have the entrances to Hastings and Fast Freddy's and those folks over there open across that work zone.
That'll be cut through.
So, yeah. This is not this is not a metal pipe then?
It's a late 70s, it's a thinner wall PVC pipe than what we specify today. There's different dimensional characteristics to PVC pipe, and at the time this was put in, it was a thinner wall than what we would specify today. I said it hasn't necessarily been problematic from a break standpoint, but because of the work that Public Works is undertaking.
The new pipe is?
The new pipe will be PVC, a current standard of PVC. It'll be a fused product where we'll actually fuse the joints together, and that allows them to pull that entire, about 1,200 feet in, all in one swoop. They'll drill the entire hole, then they'll fuse up all that pipe. They'll pull that in one pull. We've done our current project on 19th Street. We've used this product. We did Wimbledon Drive a couple of years ago where we used the same technology and product and pulled in in place of an existing cast iron main along Wimbledon Drive. And we also used it for the 16-inch water main that we did finishing up right now down O'Connell Road from 31st Street south to the new wastewater plant site.
What's the diameter of this pipe?
It'll be 8 inches. And this is the first phase of what are ultimately going to be 3 phases that take us all the way back to Louisiana along 23rd Street. The next phase is currently we're wrapping up design, and we'll be looking to bid that out yet this winter. And that goes from Alabama to Louisiana, where we do have a metallic pipe in that location that has been prone to failure over the last several years.
So
Yeah, please.
is this similar to the 9th Street line that went from up by KU? They pounded that thing into that?
That was I believe that was a sewer line that they did on 9th Street down from kind of in front of Joe's Bakery in that area. That was a little before I got here, but I think it'll actually be, they've got a cutting head, and they actually drill and then pump the materials out with hydraulic fluid and evacuate it at the end where they insert the drill head and the drill rods.
Jarred your teeth. Okay.
Any other questions for Phil?
Just to make a quick point to the other commissioners, one of the reasons why we wanted to do the 23rd and Osdale stormwater design work was to make sure that it was appropriately coordinated with all of the water line work that we're going to do eventually, additional design work in this area as well. So
This project stops just west of where those stormwater improvements would pick up in the or the Osdale intersection. So as those designs are being done, our extension on eastward through there will be designed in coordination with that.
But again, if you're going west on 23rd Street, you're going to have kind of a right-hand turn.
If you're going west
right
at
there. 23rd
23rd Street, you're going to have a period immediately west of Osdale where it'll be one lane because we don't have the right-hand turn lane yet. But once that right-hand turn lane appears, that is what will be blocked off for construction, and you'll have 2 lanes through to the west. You'll still have the left turn lane south, and we'll modify that, what is now the island, to allow traffic to make that right-hand turn. It won't be a free open right turn like it is
Right.
now. They'll have to wait in line for the traffic going west to clear through ahead of them, but they'll be able to make that right-hand turn north on Iowa from that lane.
Naismith to 19.
Right. Alternate route. Any other questions for Philip? Thank you,
Thank you.
sir. Public comment on this?
Not until the first day we're out there.
Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion or any discussion?
Well, I think we ought to go ahead and do it. Just a thought. So I'd move that we, let's see, what's the motion here?
Set a bid date.
Set a bid date, October 29th, 2013 for
The water line.
Water
B
line.
1355.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Shums, second by Commissioner Farmer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And last but not least, we have a brief audit performance result / financial indicators report from our faithful city auditor.
I was just closing my stuff out. Oh, dang it. I didn't. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Mike Iglinski, City Auditor. There we go. I'll present this report. I'll, as usual, try to be fairly quick. This is a report I've done each of the past 5 or 6 years now. The point of the report is to identify any significant existing or emerging financial issues, as well as to put the city's finances in context. And the way I do this is I calculate a set of financial ratios using the audited financial statements for the city. And I've now got 10 years of those ratios, so we can look at them over a 10-year period. I focus more of the analysis on the most recent 3 years, and I also compare to a benchmark that's based on median, which is based on a group of, I want to say 15 college towns that I get their financial statements and look at them as well. A couple things to keep in mind as we look at the report. One is that I like to stress that this is really good data. This is all audited financial statements. It's all compiled under the same audit standards and accounting standards. So it's really pretty good comparable data. However, it only goes through the end of 2012. This is more of a look back than a look forward. And the financial statements don't address things like the level and quality of services or performance, which are, of course, very important. What I thought I'd do is just kind of go over kind of 4 or 5 of the indicators that I thought were maybe a little more interesting. So the first one is what's called a financial position indicator. It's a pretty good snapshot of how much resources we have available to kind of meet ongoing needs. The blue bar there is the median, so we are much better than the median, and that's really a good strength that we've got in our financial statements. If you look at the trend from 2010 to 2011, it went up, and then from 2011 to 2012, it went down a little bit. I categorize that as a neutral trend. It's certainly not really much of a trend, actually. Another one I think is worth looking at are the long-term liabilities. This is primarily debt, bonded debt. You can see that the number has been declining since, looks like 2008. In the graph, it looks like it's right at the median. In fact, the median is sort of enlarged. We're actually just a little bit above the median. In general, that's considered good for debt to be going down and to be a little bit better than the median. It is important to recognize that we've got plans to issue debt for some of these major projects in the next couple of years. So if we do this same analysis in the next couple of years, we'll see that sort of moving up a little bit. So most of the long-term liabilities are bonded debt, but we also have what I call employee-related long-term liabilities. And these are, while overall liabilities have been going down, the employee-related liabilities have been going up. This table shows the 2 categories. One are compensated absences. So as employees earn vacation and sick leave, eventually there can be payouts for that. And that's an obligation that we will face in the future. And that's grown a fair amount. That'll grow either with levels of salary or with adding positions. And the other is the retiree health care, and we provide access basically to insurance plan for retirees until they're eligible for the federal program, and we're required to do that by state law. But you'll see that has been growing very sharply. And both of those are, difficult control and sharply growing. This analysis led to the recommendation in the report that is about, we're doing another analysis of the retiree healthcare obligations. And the recommendation is just to basically, when that's done, it's an actuarial analysis, to bring that to you all and present it and give you some a little more detail on any options there might be and any risks associated with obligations. Yeah, for this recommendation. So one of the ratios I do is kind of a measure of the age of our capital assets. Now, most of our assets are things like streets and water and sewer lines, also buildings, vehicles, equipment like that. The trend over time is kind of gently going down, which means assets are getting a little older. It's really hard to keep that from not happening. We are a little better than the median in both conditions, and that's good. But you know, it's a area that's a problem for, I think, most local governments. I did want to mention, you can break this. This puts all of these capital assets together. You can also break them out and look at individual types. You can look at streets versus buildings versus equipment. And if you look at the, I think it's called equipment, vehicles and equipment, those are in worse shape than sort of buildings and things. What that can indicate is that we may be facing in the relatively near future the need to replace more of the vehicles and machinery and equipment. Take a quick look at a couple more. This goes back, this is, I think, kind of an interesting graph. It shows adjusted for inflation, so I've taken out inflation, and adjusted for the number of people in the community. It gives a measure of the general government revenue. And you can see it's been fairly steady, grown a little bit over those 10 years. There's a bump in 2010, and that bump is the cash, basically, that we got for cleaning up the Venture Park, I guess it is now.
Very good.
I do the same thing. So this is the revenue side. This is the money coming in. And I do the same for the expenditure. This is per resident and adjusted for inflation again. And you'll see that this goes up and down a little more. And that's really because I think we have more ability to make sort of budget level decisions that are going to push those numbers up or down. You see in particular, I think, a pretty quick response on the expenditure side back around 2008 when the recession really hit. And then I also took a look at a lot of the analysis I see in other cities looks broader, looks at some of the kind of demographic and economic, contextual and environmental measures. And I picked out these two, which are fairly common. And you'll see both assessed value and the number of employees on non-farm payrolls. I looked at a little bit longer period because it shows better sort of, I guess, you know, some changes that we would rather not see, but have happened. And you'll see both of those graphs have kind of flattened out over the more recent years. I think in particular the assessed value, you know, with the housing bubble, pretty much hit local governments quite hard. That's it. There's plenty more in the report. It's maybe a little dry if you're not into financial statements, but it's all there. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And the report, for anybody who's still awake and watching, is online, and I did upload it today, so it's available right now. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Michael?
Let me ask on figure 26 and 27, the revenue per resident for governmental funds versus the expenditure per resident for governmental funds. Is the revenue, is that like $800 a person? The expenditure is $900 a person?
Yes, because the gap between that is made up with things like bond proceeds. So, yeah.
Okay.
There's probably, it may also include transfers, make up that gap.
Is that something to be concerned about when I'm looking at these charts, or there's something else figured in there that wouldn't show that the revenue that we're collecting is $800 a person, and then we're spending 900, because that doesn't add up at the end of the day?
Well, we're using bond proceeds, which are not revenue that are coming in like that, as well as, I believe transfers shows up there too. Let me take a quick look.
Okay.
So those are coming in from, yeah, so issuance of general obligation bond as well as transfers will close that gap. Transfers in particular, a pretty large amount.
Okay.
So, yeah. So on the revenue side, it's really taxes, special assessments, fees and service charges, any grants we get, interests on investments, that kind of stuff.
Our total revenue package.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
There was a, number 21 shows that we have a consistent trend down for liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
That's getting towards the median. When does that become concerning?
Yeah. There's not yet.
Okay.
And one thing that's going to happen, that trend is also related to the long-term liabilities trend. And then when you have more, basically more bonded debt, you tend to have also more cash on hand. And the ratios are pretty good. It's more dramatic, actually. I've got a graph here. Yeah, so for the water and basically water and solid waste side, this is that same graph, and you'll see the same thing. It was quite high, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and it's gone down, but it's not really low. It's still, in this case, above the median, and yeah, it's not troubling yet, and it doesn't seem to be, a bad, shocking, scary trend. If it were, I would have brought it up.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Michael? Okay. Well, we appreciate it. As far as the city manager's response to your report, any comments to that, Dave, or you?
No, again, I appreciate Michael's work. I think that it's a very valuable tool, and I think Michael would agree it becomes more valuable over time as we see trends and as we know what we look at it. I know one of his comments, I think he's very much on point, is that we do have some aging infrastructure, we have some aging equipment, and we're trying to establish priorities that can be expensive. We want to be wise in that regard. It's a point of pride. Dave Wagner's already left, but it's a point of pride that the utilities department hasn't bought a new sedan in probably like 5 or 7 years. We recycle old ones from patrol cars and those kinds of things. We probably only do that for so long, after a while. His recommendation in regards to the other post-employment employee benefit, primarily the retiree health care, I think that's it's an area of concern. State law does require us to offer that to retired employees. It doesn't say what the dollar amount has to be for the premium, which has some relevance to what our liability would be in that area. But that's something I think we need to look at, and something that we need to not only just continue to monitor with appropriate actuarial studies and for you all to further understand that, but also to look at what there might be in regards to recommendations in regards to that as well.
And I can say I didn't look this year, but last year I looked a little at our obligation compared to some other communities. And while those are big numbers, they're not this sort of huge, scary big numbers that some places are facing.
Mm-hmm.
Which it sounds silly to say, 4.9 million is not a scary number, but there are places where a community our size will have a $20, $25 million obligation. So.
Yeah.
That's not an annual obligation. City budget of $190 million, having that liability out there is a concern, but it's not, it's not,
Right, right.
it's not something to, you know.
It's very much like just the bonded debt of outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, is there a motion to receive the report?
Second.
Motion to receive the financial report from City Auditor by Vice Mayor Amick, seconded by Commissioner Reardon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Is there any public comment of a general nature? Okay. And future agenda items.
Mayor and Commissioners, you all know you had a deadline of providing comments in regards to the proposed rental registration ordinance. We've received those comments. We've got them there on the future agendas memo. In talking with the mayor and vice mayor and Scott McCullough and other staff involved in this issue yesterday, I think we may want to consider establishing a study session date to talk generally about the progress on this ordinance and maybe some of the expectations in regards to the minimum housing code and what we want to have enforced generally in the community and what we want to have enforced in regards to the rental registration ordinance. I think there's some discussion that the entire commission needs to have. We'll try and, at the study session, have that discussion focused, but I think that might be a better format in regards to how to look at this before we proceed. So that's my suggestion, that we talk on our calendar about when to schedule that, as quickly as we could. If we do that, then I think our plan would not be to probably have a final ordinance on then next Tuesday, but to have the study session, get your direction again on this, and then come back with options as quickly as possible.
Okay. Well, I guess if there's no commission items, is there a motion to adjourn?
Do we want to talk calendar about when we want to schedule a study session?
Right now?
Got you all here. Does something like next Tuesday work? Late in the afternoon?
I think I have something for the retirement.
Yeah, I've got a United Way talk, and I'd like to go to the Live Well 5-year anniversary celebration and
that's on
the
Tuesday.
faculty receptions at the Spencer Museum of Art. So
What about the 22nd? I'm just looking at Tuesday afternoons because I've understood that that's
It's a good day.
Yeah.
that's fine.
the best.
22nd would work. I don't see anything else on.
22nd October.
It's 4 o'clock on the 22nd?
Okay.
So then we're not going to have it on the agenda next week.
That would be my recommendation, Commission, is that we not have anything on the agenda until after we have the study session discussion about your comments and some of the staff interpretation of these issues. We can talk about that on the 22nd, then we try and turn it around as quickly as possible to put it on a future agenda based upon your direction. You're not deciding anything at the study session, but you may be able to give us some direction about what's in and what's out. So study session at 4 o'clock on Tuesday, August the 22nd?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we got Valor Awards on the 15th also, and the bake sale on the 16th. We'll see it before then. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Wait.
What?
I want to say something under commission.
Oh, okay.
I've been in contact with Commissioner Thelman from the county, and there's an issue at hand where there could be a substantial development take place on the former Pine farm area that is in the northeast sector plan. And the question I pose to this commission is it, would it be appropriate and insightful to get together with the county commission to see what the interests are in terms of this property? It's not in the city right now, but if the development goes into play, it would need city services. So it's kind of a combination of commissions that need to find out what our collective thinking is. And so I mentioned to her that I would ask the commission tonight if what your interest would be in that.
I would have great interest in that. I think it's necessary and important.
So you want to see if we want to have a meeting with the county commissioners to discuss exactly what?
The development, the potential development on the tract of land that the Delaware Indian Nation just purchased.
Okay. So, but what are we going to talk about?
Well, I think the things that you talk about is development in that area is going to be very, very difficult. You've got a lot of flooding. You've got sewer problems. We've had substantial difficulty putting in even a septic tank for the airport. And I have no idea what their thinking is on it.
Right.
I don't have any idea what our thinking is on it. But I do believe that it would be time to sit down and find out collectively where we're all at. We did pass the Northeast Sector Plan, which said we won't develop that area. Now, being that it might become a, I forgot the term used when it's in a Native American property.
Put in trust.
Put in trust, yes. Then they don't have to, it's my understanding they don't have to comply with any of those of our regulations. So, I mean, I guess it's just time to find out what we all think collectively and what we want to do, if anything.
Mayor, you had an idea yesterday going into the meeting, maybe it's time that what really happens, and Bob, I appreciate you bringing it up tonight to possibly have a meeting with the county. I think your idea yesterday of actually making a visit to go visit with Delaware Tribe to find out exactly, what kind of requests may be coming, if one at all, I think would be a good place to start, so that we had at least some basis of, meeting to talk about, what our plans may be in regard to this.
And we might want to invite them to
Invite
this
the
joint
county to
meeting
go,
and just-
absolutely.
Yeah, I was just, I asked you that because, not to be facetious, but to say, I don't really know what to talk about because haven't heard any plans, and from last report, anything we've been told to this point is not accurate. So, because there's different parties involved. So what I was going to suggest is, Jeremy, why don't you chime in on this?
Well,
Because he's been working with Nancy on a regular basis.
yes, I think that there's a lot of folks in the community that are very concerned, and I think it would behoove us to have a face-to-face meeting with the tribe to find out what it is that they're desiring to do, because a lot of it's happened with different parties that have been involved. And my concern all along has been, this is it's a tenuous issue, not only because of the land that's there and the Northeast Sector Plan and the Type 1, Type 2 soils, but it's also a tenuous issue because anytime a group of folks that, everybody thinks, something perhaps that's not going to happen is going to happen inevitably. And so we need to start building bridges, and we don't need to isolate folks, and we don't need to let people's assumptions be what everybody thinks is the main course, because in that case, nobody really wins. And so, the last thing that I want is to tell a Native American tribe that they're not welcome in our community. And so we've got to find a way to build bridges with them and to our community. And so I think meeting with the tribe initially and finding out what it is that they want to do and figuring out the best way to move forward. And I think the joint meeting, Bob's a great idea. I think we definitely need to do that. And But I just think the first start is we've got to find out, you know, what it is that we're going to talk about. Because if it's just stuff being developed on type 1-2 soils, that's a different conversation than another one. So
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, how big it is, what they're thinking. Because I don't know if I could have I mean, I'd like to hear where people stand, but I'd like to hear where they stand on the proposal at hand. And if I can get, or we can get a meeting with them prior to that meeting, that would be helpful, and maybe even be prepared. So it doesn't just come in a meeting then.
Yeah, and my thought in bringing this up today is that there has been substantial activity, and that I'd rather be a party to this sooner than later. And I know the county commission is, or well, at least Commissioner Thelman, I don't know about the rest of the commissioners, is concerned about this too. So just to somewhere start the dialogue and find out what our commissions, how we're going to react to everything, and what we're going to do with the tribe, and for sure, I don't want this to be misunderstood that I'm not welcoming Native American tribes.
No, I didn't
I know.
I didn't mean
but
that
I
at all.
want to be quite pointed that I'm not at that point. I'm really concerned about the environmental impact of that property.
Sure.
It's a very, very delicate property. Just like the gentleman today had the CD of the flood waters. I've seen pictures of it looking like a great lake out there, not just a green grass field.
No, I didn't mean to come across.
No, I didn't.
Not at all, Bob.
I didn't take it that way.
Okay, you know, the thing for me is the best approach is not to be reactive, it's to be proactive. And I think extending a hand of friendship and courtesy initially before, you know, we go off having a joint meeting to talk about assumptions is going to be a really positive thing. So I appreciate bringing that up. And I think, I mean, does that sound good to you guys? I mean, in an ideal world, go down and meet with the tribe and then have a joint meeting once we kind of figure out what's going on. I mean, does that sound like a good, not trying to do your job, but I mean, does that sound like a good?
No, because you've been talking, this is something that, yeah, we've actually talked, and you've talked and individually, but we haven't talked as a group because we're not supposed to be doing that. So
yeah,
I appreciate
Well,
that.
I've been involved on the front end a little bit with the Ketchums when they were the spokespeople for the tribe, but now I understand that's changed. And so, you know, just from getting up to speed with the correct amount of information, I think it's going to be helpful for everybody. And I do agree. It's just like when you don't know the facts, then everyone suspects something else, and lots of times it's different, and that's certainly not fair.
Yeah, and that conversation could go and take that left turn because we don't know. So I'd like to offer to do that. I know I have to go to Oklahoma City sometime this month, by the end of the month, so I could go that way and stop by and visit and or we could schedule a formal meeting with a couple of commissioners. It doesn't matter, but I know that we need to probably have a face-to-face conversation sooner than later and then schedule a meeting so we know their plans.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Go do it.
So we'll do it. We'll do it.
So the direction is that, Mayor, you're going to work to schedule a meeting with appropriate tribe representatives, and then we would then, after that, probably have a discussion with the county commission.
Yes, I would seek your assistance in arranging that visit and then maybe bring at least, I don't know if you want to go, but.
You want to include maybe one of the county commissioners?
Yes?
Okay. We might want to make that contact too with the county commission.
Yeah, it depends if we just go down or if I'm, it depends on what transpires and if they're really interested in meeting. If I stop by and on the way somewhere, or if we make a formal conversation of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a formal conversation would be great, and I think they're going to want to meet with us. I mean, what we've heard all along is that they want to work with us, and we just, I think we owe it to the community to be strategic in what happens on that piece of land, and there's a lot of concern, about it. And, some of that concern perhaps is justified, and others is just assumptions that folks are making. And so I think we have an opportunity to justly figure out what's happening. And to be proactive in doing that. So I think that's a great suggestion, and I'd be happy to go down with you
Okay,
if that would work.
so we'll figure it out. Yes. We'll endeavor to schedule a meeting in the next couple weeks. That works, and then it will invite one county commissioner, since that's all that could be at a non-public meeting. I presume.
That's my understanding.
Okay, great, thanks, Bob.
Then after that, based on what you find, we can
Schedule a meeting.
we can get the next, we can figure out the next step.
Schedule a meeting when we have a plan in front of us. All right, any other commission items? Okay,
Sorry, I held up the adjournment.
that's okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Commissioner Shum, seconded by Commissioner Reardon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion passes 5-0.